Hidden beneath layers of earth, across remote deserts, high mountains and isolated islands, lie traces of civilizations whose knowledge and craftsmanship challenge everything we think we know about human history. Monumental stone circles that predate agriculture, labyrinthine underground cities, and colossal walls shaped with impossible precision all hint at skills far beyond what should have been possible. Some constructions endure centuries of earthquakes, while certain artifacts reveal an understanding of celestial movements and engineering that continues to puzzle researchers today. Through the ridges of the Andes, across the windswept plains of Peru, along the coasts of Micronesia, and within the ruins of Mesopotamia, you will discover megalithic constructions, intricate urban layouts, and enigmatic devices. Each discovery reveals ingenuity that defies explanation, leaving lingering questions about the depth of ancient knowledge and the secrets that remain buried beneath the surface of history. Gobekli Tepe and the architecture that predates agriculture. Long before cities rose along the Nile or the Tigris, before pottery kilns burned steadily or fields were ploughed in measured rows, a circle of stone pillars stood on a limestone ridge in what is now southeastern Turkey, overlooking the Harran Plain. This place, known today as Gobekli Tepe, was constructed around 9600 BCE, at the threshold of the Neolithic era, in a world archaeologists once described as populated only by small bands of mobile hunter-gatherers. The site lies near modern Sanliurfa, and its earliest layers predate agriculture, metal tools, and even settled village life. Yet the stone suggests something far more deliberate than survival alone, hinting at organised intention in an age long assumed to be defined by impermanence. When German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began excavations there in 1995, under the auspices of the German Archaeological Institute, he recognised that the low mound concealed more than scattered debris. Beneath layers of soil lay massive T-shaped limestone pillars arranged in circular enclosures, some reaching more than 5 meters in height and weighing up to 20 tons. Radiocarbon dating of organic material associated with the deepest layers placed the earliest construction firmly in the pre-pottery Neolithic A period. The implications were immediate and unsettling, because the accepted narrative held that only agricultural societies could organise labour on such a scale, mobilising workers beyond the needs of daily subsistence. Each circular enclosure consists of 2 towering central pillars surrounded by smaller T-shaped stones set into stone walls, forming rings that may have once supported roofing or partial coverings. The pillars are not rough monoliths left in their natural state, but carefully quarried and shaped from the surrounding bedrock using flint tools. Carved into their surfaces are low-relief images of animals, foxes, boars, snakes, scorpions, cranes, and vultures rendered with anatomical clarity and motion. The carvings are not random decorations, but repeated motifs across multiple enclosures, suggesting symbolic continuity rather than isolated artistic impulse, and pointing toward a shared narrative language sustained over generations. The precision required to extract, transport, and erect these stones challenges assumptions about what pre-agricultural communities could achieve. Nearby limestone quarries reveal partially cut pillars still attached to the bedrock, indicating a systematic process of production that involved foresight and standardized forms. Without metal chisels, wheels, or draft animals, the builders must have coordinated teams capable of moving multi-ton blocks across uneven terrain and positioning them upright within prepared sockets carved into the ground. Such coordination implies planning, leadership, and shared intention on a scale rarely attributed to hunter-gatherers of the 10th millennium BCE. What distinguishes Gobekli Tepe further is its apparent lack of domestic architecture in the earliest phases. Excavations have not revealed hearths, storage pits, or dwellings directly associated with the monumental enclosures, leading many researchers to interpret the site as primarily ritual or ceremonial in function. If that interpretation is correct, it suggests that collective symbolic activity preceded permanent settlement rather than emerging from it. The idea reverses a long-standing model in archaeology that religion and monumentality followed agricultural surplus, implying instead that shared belief may have been the catalyst for social transformation and cooperative labour. Among the most striking features are the anthropomorphic qualities of the central pillars. Some display carved arms along their sides, hands clasped across a stylized abdomen, and belts with animal skin loincloths, indicating that the T-shape may represent a human form rather than a purely abstract symbol. The faces are absent, yet the suggestion of presence is unmistakable, as though these monoliths stood in silent assembly presiding over gatherings whose details are now irretrievable. This stylization appears repeatedly across different enclosures, reinforcing the notion of a coherent iconographic system developed long before written language formalized myth or memory. Animal imagery dominates the site, and its distribution varies between enclosures, hinting at shifting symbolic emphases over time. Enclosure D, one of the largest and best preserved, contains numerous depictions of dangerous creatures such as snakes and boars, while other areas emphasize different species that may have carried distinct meanings. Some scholars have proposed that these animals reflect mythological narratives or cosmological structures now lost to time. Others see them as clan symbols or totems representing different groups who gathered at the site, though definitive interpretation remains elusive and no inscriptions survive to clarify intent. The stratigraphy of Gobekli Tepe reveals multiple construction phases spanning centuries, with earlier enclosures deliberately buried and new ones erected above them. This intentional backfilling required considerable labour, suggesting that burial was not abandonment but a structured act of closure embedded within ritual practice. Rather than collapsing through neglect, the monumental circles were entombed under tons of debris, preserving the carvings with remarkable clarity and sealing them from erosion. Such cyclical building and burial indicate a long-term relationship between community and monument, one governed by ceremonial timing rather than simple utility. Radiocarbon dates indicate that activity at Gobekli Tepe continued into the pre-pottery Neolithic B period, after which the site was gradually abandoned around 8000 BCE. By that time, agriculture had begun to take hold in nearby regions, including early domestication of wheat in southeastern Anatolia, not far from the Karakadag Mountains where wild einkorn once grew. Some researchers argue that the social networks formed through gatherings at sites like Gobekli Tepe may have facilitated the exchange of knowledge that accelerated cultivation and settlement. In this view, monument building was not the result of farming but one of the forces that made farming possible, binding scattered groups into more stable communities. Comparisons with later megalithic structures across Europe and the Near East reveal echoes of similar circular arrangements and standing stones, yet Gobekli Tepe predates them by millennia. No other known site of its age displays such monumental scale combined with intricate relief carving and standardized architectural planning. The absence of pottery and metal artifacts underscores how early this achievement occurred, situating it at a moment when humanity was supposedly confined to subsistence strategies and transient camps. The site compels reconsideration of cognitive, organizational, and artistic capacities at the dawn of the Holocene. Today, portions of Gobekli Tepe remain unexcavated beneath protective shelters, and only a fraction of the mound has been systematically explored. Ground-penetrating surveys suggest additional enclosures still hidden within the hill, their forms outlined but not yet revealed to daylight. As archaeological methods advance and interpretations evolve, the stones continue to resist simple explanation, standing as evidence that complex symbolic systems and coordinated labour flourished long before conventional markers of civilization. And beneath the unexcavated earth of that Anatolian ridge, more pillars may still be waiting to challenge everything believed about how civilization truly began. The Great Pyramid of Giza's mathematical precision. At the edge of Egypt's western desert, where the limestone plateau meets the haze of Cairo's skyline, the Great Pyramid of Giza rises with a stillness that feels engineered rather than ancient. Built during the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom for Pharaoh Khufu, who reigned around 2580 to 2560 BCE, the monument dominates the Giza Plateau alongside 2 smaller pyramids and the Great Sphinx. Although commonly described as a royal tomb, its scale and precision resist simple classification. The structure does not merely occupy space in the landscape, it imposes order upon it, transforming desert bedrock into a statement of measured permanence, measured not in legend but in meters. The structure's original height of approximately 146.6 meters and its nearly perfect 230.4 meter base reveal a scale governed by calculation rather than approximation. Each of the 4 sides differs in length by only a few centimeters, a discrepancy so small that it remains difficult to achieve even with modern surveying equipment over such a distance. The base covers more than 13 acres, forming a square whose corners approach right angles with extraordinary accuracy. These measurements were not symbolic exaggerations recorded centuries later, but physical realities embedded in limestone. Aligned almost precisely to true north, with a deviation of only a few arc minutes, the pyramid's orientation suggests astronomical observation of remarkable consistency. Unlike magnetic north, which shifts over time, true north requires reference to the stars or the sun's shadow at specific intervals. Scholars have proposed that ancient Egyptian surveyors may have used circumpolar stars to establish alignment, observing their transit across the night sky to determine a stable axis. Whatever the method, the result remains fixed, and the pyramid's faces continue to correspond to the cardinal directions with an accuracy that implies disciplined, repeated observation rather than intuition. Beneath the lowest courses of stone lies a foundation leveled to within mere centimetres across an expanse larger than many modern city blocks. Portions of the bedrock were cut down, while others were built up with carefully placed stones to create a flat platform capable of supporting millions of tons. One widely discussed hypothesis suggests that builders may have used water-filled trenches to establish a horizontal reference plane, allowing them to identify high and low points with precision. The levelling alone required coordination, patience, and knowledge of basic geometry, all executed without steel instruments or digital measurement. Inside the monument, narrow passages ascend and descend at fixed angles, converging toward chambers whose placement appears determined long before the first stone was raised. The descending passage slopes at approximately 26 degrees into the bedrock, while the ascending corridor and the grand gallery rise toward the king's chamber in deliberate alignment. Granite blocks weighing between 60 and 80 tons form the chamber's ceiling, stacked in relieving chambers designed to distribute immense pressure. The interior does not appear improvised. It reflects a premeditated spatial blueprint translated into stone with consistent angular discipline. Encoded within its proportions are numerical relationships that continue to provoke debate, including ratios that approximate constants recognized in later mathematical traditions. The ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to twice its height closely approaches the value of 2p, while the slope angle of roughly 51 degrees and 50 minutes produces geometric relationships embedded throughout the structure. Many Egyptologists caution against projecting modern mathematical symbolism backward onto the Old Kingdom, yet the measurable relationships exist regardless of interpretation, raising the possibility that the builders possessed a refined understanding of geometry expressed not through written formulas, but through architecture. Transported from distant quarries such as Tura and Aswan, millions of limestone and granite blocks were assembled into a form that required coordination across vast stretches of the Nile Valley. The fine white casing stones that once covered the exterior came from Tura, on the eastern bank of the Nile, while the granite used in internal chambers originated hundreds of kilometers south near Aswan. Each block, averaging around 2.5 tons, had to be quarried, shaped, transported by boat, and hauled into position. The logistical network required to sustain such movement over decades implies administrative precision equal to the architectural one. Proposed ramp systems, whether straight, spiraled, or internal, attempt to explain the ascent of multi-ton stones, yet none account seamlessly for every architectural detail. Some models envision a massive straight ramp extending outward from one face, while others suggest a spiraling path wrapping around the structure as it rises. A more recent internal ramp hypothesis proposes that corridors hidden within the pyramid's body may have facilitated lifting without leaving obvious external traces. Despite decades of experimentation and modelling, no single theory resolves all constraints of space, labour, and material evidence. Extending from the king's and queen's chambers, narrow shafts angle outward toward the sky in orientations that some researchers associate with specific stellar positions of the Old Kingdom era. The southern shaft of the king's chamber has been linked to Orion's belt, while another points roughly toward the star Sirius, though interpretations vary among scholars. These shafts are too narrow for human passage and were sealed until modern exploration. Whether symbolic conduits for the king's spirit or precise astronomical markers, their angles were set with deliberate intent that aligned stone with sky. For more than 4.5 millennia, the pyramid has endured earthquakes, erosion, and the stripping away of its outer casing stones without surrendering its geometric coherence. Medieval builders removed much of the smooth limestone casing for construction projects in Cairo, yet the underlying core retained its angular symmetry. Modern skyscrapers require continuous maintenance to resist environmental stress, while this monument of stacked stone has remained largely stable through shifting climates and political upheavals. Its endurance suggests structural foresight embedded not only in its design but in the selection and placement of each block. Taken as a whole, the monument stands not merely as a royal tomb of the 4th dynasty, but as a convergence of surveying, astronomy, logistics, and symbolic authority expressed through stone. Every measurable feature, from its cardinal orientation to the levelling of its base, reinforces the impression of a civilization capable of uniting observational science with monumental ambition. The Great Pyramid does not appear accidental or approximate. It reflects decisions tested against horizon lines and star paths, repeated until alignment satisfied intention. As its edges continue to point unerringly toward the cardinal directions, the pyramid endures like a fixed equation written against the horizon, waiting for someone to understand what it was meant to solve fully. Puma Punku and the stone blocks that defy conventional tools. Nearly 3,850 metres above sea level, where the air thins and Lake Titicaca reflects a hard Andean sky, the fragmented stone platform of Puma Punku rests in deliberate silence. The site forms part of the broader Tiwanaku complex in western Bolivia, associated with the Tiwanaku civilization that flourished roughly between 500 and 1000 CE. Massive red sandstone slabs and precisely carved grey andesite blocks lie scattered as though a structure had been dismantled by force rather than time. The altitude, isolation, and stark geometry of the stones create an atmosphere that feels less ruined than interrupted, as if frozen mid-construction. Scattered across the site are andesite blocks carved into precise H-shaped forms whose symmetry appears almost industrial in its repetition. These blocks feature straight edges, recessed interior corners, and flat surfaces meeting at near-perfect right angles. Several examples share nearly identical proportions, suggesting standardization rather than individual experimentation. When placed side by side, the repetition becomes unmistakable, implying components of a design once unified by intention. Some blocks reach lengths of over 5 meters, weighing dozens of tons each, yet the cuts remain remarkably consistent, highlighting a level of forethought that demands attention. Unlike the softer limestone used in many ancient monuments, the grey andesite at Puma Punku is a dense volcanic stone that resists shaping without sustained force and abrasion. On the Mohs hardness scale, andesite ranks significantly higher than copper, the primary metal known to the Tiwanaku culture. No evidence of iron tools has been found at the site, and metallurgy in the region focused primarily on copper and copper-arsenic alloys. The challenge of carving such stone with available materials raises questions about the methods employed, and the smoothness of some surfaces, with flat planes and sharp angles, remains remarkable even by modern standards. Along certain block faces, cylindrical perforations and sharply defined grooves cut into the stone suggest a level of control exceeding casual craftsmanship. Some drill holes display consistent diameters and smooth interior walls, features that have prompted debate among archaeologists and engineers. Experimental archaeology shows that stone tools combined with sand abrasion can produce similar effects, though the process demands time and precision. What remains striking is not that the cuts are impossible, but that they are executed with uniformity across multiple stones, and even minor deviations could have compromised their ability to interlock. Beyond the carving itself lies the question of movement, as some of these multi-ton andesite pieces are believed to have originated from quarries across Lake Titicaca, possibly near Cerro Capia, on the lake's southern shore. Transporting stone over distances approaching 90 kilometers would have required coordinated labor and watercraft capable of bearing immense weight. The Tiwanaku civilization is known to have utilized reed boats, and large sandstone blocks at the site were sourced from nearby quarries. Even so, the logistics of moving and positioning these stones at such an altitude suggest planning on a regional scale, with organized teams coordinating every stage. Carved into the upper surfaces of several stones are eye-shaped recesses that once held metal clamps, binding adjoining blocks with deliberate precision. Archaeological evidence indicates that copper-based alloy clamps were poured or hammered into these sockets to secure adjacent stones together. This integration of metallurgy with masonry demonstrates not only technical skill, but structural foresight. The recesses are uniformly shaped, implying the placement of each clamp was anticipated during carving rather than added as an afterthought. When viewed collectively, the clamp system reflects a sophisticated understanding of load distribution without modern calculations. Positioned within the larger Tiwanaku complex, Puma Punku appears to have functioned as a monumental platform whose layout followed a carefully organised architectural plan. The platform aligns with other structures in the area, including the Kalasasaya temple, suggesting integration within a broader ceremonial landscape. Archaeological research indicates that the site likely held religious or political significance, serving as a focal point for gatherings and rituals. Its design, incorporating interlocking blocks and fitted joints, reflects a level of architectural coherence that extends beyond individual stones. When Spanish chroniclers arrived in the 16th century, they recorded the site as already shattered, its immense stones displaced long before colonial contact. Accounts attributed to Pedro Cieza de Leon describe large, finely cut blocks lying in disarray, though he did not witness their original form. The fragmentation may have resulted from natural forces, structural collapse, or deliberate dismantling, yet no definitive explanation exists. Even in its ruined state, the surviving blocks maintain precise angles and cuts that make the original assembly still intelligible to careful observers. Modern experiments attempting to replicate Puma Punku's cuts with stone tools and sand abrasives have demonstrated the possibility, yet only with extraordinary time and discipline. Researchers have shown that patient grinding can produce smooth planes and interior angles, though replicating the exactness seen in the H-blocks requires sustained effort. These experiments do not eliminate the mystery, but suggest that technological capability may have been rooted in methodical craftsmanship. Even under ideal conditions, reproducing dozens of blocks with identical precision remains an undertaking that strains modern imagination. Measured side by side, many of the H-blocks reveal near identical dimensions, implying a modular system that required planning rather than improvisation. The repetition suggests that builders anticipated how each component would interlock with others, forming walls or platforms whose integrity depended on uniform spacing. The precision of alignment reinforces the impression of deliberate engineering logic applied repeatedly, and the standardization hints at a construction culture capable of abstract planning beyond immediate needs. Within the broader achievements of the Tiwanaku civilization, including raised field agriculture that transformed the high-altitude landscape and monumental temples such as Kalasasaya, Puma Punku does not stand as an anomaly, but as an extension of sustained technical ambition. The society that shaped these stones also managed complex irrigation systems and maintained influence across wide regions of the Andean Plateau. Observing the site today, the human effort required to conceive and execute such precision is nearly palpable, leaving the impression of a people who understood stone in ways modern eyes still struggle to grasp. In the thin, wind-scoured silence above Lake Titicaca, the sharply cut edges of those andesite blocks remain so exact that they seem less like relics of erosion than fragments of a method we have yet to comprehend fully. The Antikythera Mechanism and the ancient Greek computer. Time itself seems to turn within the Antikythera Mechanism, a bronze device whose interlocking gears encode the movements of the heavens with uncanny foresight. Though only roughly the size of a shoebox, its intricate network of wheels and dials embodies a complexity that would not be seen again for more than a millennium. The artifact emerges from an era when mathematics, astronomy and philosophy intersected in ways that could be applied to both observation and prediction. Its survival is astonishing. Submerged in seawater for centuries, the bronze endured corrosion that could have erased its precision entirely. It is not the monumentality of its size that astounds, but the conceptual leap it represents, turning abstract celestial cycles into a mechanical reality no one had anticipated for centuries. Beneath layers of corrosion and marine sediment, tiny wheels and engraved plates reveal astonishing craftsmanship. Each surface, once polished, is etched with inscriptions describing function and purpose. The mechanism's exterior hints at its inner intricacy, as if the bronze itself contains a coded language of motion. To modern eyes, the device appears deceptively simple until careful examination reveals a network of interdependent gears, calibrated with a precision that even contemporary engineering might struggle to reproduce without advanced tools. Analysis shows that some gears were deliberately hollowed to reduce friction and prevent warping over time, revealing forethought in both design and durability. Its compactness intensifies the mystery, immense knowledge contained within a small portable frame. 30 or more gears mesh precisely, forming a lattice of mechanical intelligence that translates the rhythms of the heavens into tangible movement. The interlocking teeth follow calculated ratios, allowing rotations to correspond to lunar cycles, solar positioning, and planetary phases. Even the spacing and size of individual teeth demonstrate intentionality, with deviations measured in fractions of a millimeter. The device employs a differential mechanism, centuries ahead of the first known European implementation, allowing the lunar phase to be tracked separately from the lunar orbit. This intricate architecture suggests more than manual dexterity. It requires conceptual understanding, a translation of astronomical observation into a machine capable of perpetually synchronized movement. Rotating pointers and calibrated dials track lunar phases, the position of the sun along the zodiac, and eclipses with remarkable accuracy. Observers of the time would have been able to predict celestial events decades in advance, turning abstract patterns into practical knowledge. The device embodies a physical model of the cosmos, making the heavens intelligible through motion. Each rotation of a gear corresponds to a measurable cosmic interval, effectively turning bronze into an analogue of the night sky. A portable universe constructed for human comprehension and utility. Scholars note that the mechanism likely accounted for the elliptical nature of the moon's orbit, an observation not formally described in surviving Greek texts. Embedded within the device are cycles that connect astronomical observation to human ritual. The 19-year Metonic cycle aligns lunar months with solar years. The Saros cycle predicts eclipses. The 4-year Olympiad calendar ties timekeeping to civic events. Through these interwoven measures, the Antikythera Mechanism unites natural and social rhythms. It reflects a worldview in which celestial phenomena and human affairs are interconnected, and its creators understood how to encode those relationships in enduring mechanical form. The inscriptions also suggest that users could anticipate the timing of religious festivals and ceremonial events, integrating scientific and cultural knowledge seamlessly. Each gear tooth is cut with microscopic precision, demonstrating craftsmanship that transcends typical Hellenistic engineering. Scholars have marveled at the tolerances achieved, considering the tools available at the time. Bronze, hardened through careful casting, was carved with hand tools to achieve consistency sufficient for predictable gear rotation. The ingenuity lies not only in cutting the metal, but in conceptualizing a system where every rotation is mathematically intentional. Evidence indicates that multiple craftsmen likely collaborated, each specializing in particular gears or inscriptions, revealing early forms of specialized labor in mechanical design. The precision implies sustained experimentation and a level of abstract reasoning that challenges conventional assumptions about ancient technology. Engraved text on the plates provides operational instructions, revealing that the device was meant to be understood and used by humans. These inscriptions explain which dial represents lunar phases, how to track eclipses, and how to adjust for intercalary months. They indicate that its creators intended interaction, not merely demonstration, requiring knowledge of both celestial mechanics and gear operation. The existence of explanatory text transforms the mechanism from an engineering feat into a tool for practical learning and calculation, suggesting an advanced culture of literacy, mathematics, and scientific inquiry. Some phrases hint that adjustments were expected as astronomical observations deviated slightly over time, implying an awareness of observational error. Recent X-ray imaging and 3D modelling have peeled back the obscuring layers of corrosion, uncovering the hidden sophistication of the mechanism. Researchers discovered multiple nested gears, including differential-like arrangements that were previously thought to have appeared only in modern clockmaking. Reconstruction efforts revealed that the device's precision could have allowed consistent predictions of lunar and solar events decades in advance. Despite these technological insights, the full range of its capabilities continues to elude scholars, leaving the mechanism as much an enigma as a revelation. Even subtle features such as gear alignment tolerances and gear ratios for eclipse prediction remain difficult to replicate with period tools. The Antikythera Mechanism transforms abstract mathematics and astronomy into tangible motion, demonstrating cognitive engineering centuries ahead of its time. It embodies a synthesis of observation, theory, and mechanical execution, a physical manifestation of knowledge that might otherwise have remained conceptual. By encoding complex cycles into bronze gears, its creators bridged the gap between human comprehension and celestial phenomena, producing a device that functions both as a computational tool and as a testament to human ingenuity. Its combination of astronomical modelling, mechanical skill, and user instruction is unmatched among surviving artefacts from antiquity. Within Hellenistic Greece, where mathematics, philosophy, and astronomy converged, the mechanism hints at a broader technological tradition largely lost to history. Scholars have speculated that other devices of similar sophistication may have existed, yet none have survived. The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a solitary witness, suggesting that the Greeks were capable of sophisticated mechanical modelling far earlier than previously recognised. Its existence invites reflection on what knowledge was once possible and what may have vanished with time, leaving only tantalising fragments of intellectual heritage. It hints at workshops or schools where mechanical and astronomical knowledge were deliberately cultivated, now almost entirely forgotten. Even in its fragmented state, the Antikythera Mechanism continues to challenge assumptions about ancient Greek capabilities. A single small artifact demonstrates that centuries before modern engineering, humans were already capable of translating abstract scientific knowledge into practical, operational devices. It exemplifies both mathematical understanding and mechanical ingenuity, an extraordinary confluence that elevates it far above what contemporary assumptions might allow. Observing it, one cannot help but sense the intellectual ambition behind each tiny gear, each calculated rotation, each carefully inscribed instruction. The more scientists study it, the more questions arise about the full scope of Greek technological understanding. Its bronze wheels turned silently through history, a whisper of an intelligence that mapped the heavens long before clocks or computers existed. Machu Picchu's seismic engineering in the Andes. Centuries of earthquakes have rumbled through the Andes, yet Machu Picchu stands unbroken, a silent testament to a civilization that seemed to understand the hidden language of mountains and tremors. While modern engineers study its walls with admiration and confusion, the Incas built a city whose structures have endured the violent forces of nature without the use of mortar or iron tools. Every stone, stairway and terrace is evidence of a knowledge system that balanced human habitation with geological reality, anticipating landslides, heavy rainfall, and seismic activity in ways that continue to challenge contemporary understanding. The city is not merely perched on the ridge, it is an extension of the mountain shaped to survive. Its walls fit together with such precision that the forces of nature pass through them without disturbing a single block, as if the stones themselves were engineered to move and absorb shock. The polygonal stones interlock with minute gaps, and their irregular shapes distribute stress throughout the walls, allowing them to sway rather than fracture during tremors. Researchers have noted that the massive stones, some weighing several tons, appear to have been individually selected and positioned with an awareness of weight distribution and balance. Every corner, joint and angle seems purposeful, a subtle testament to knowledge encoded directly into the masonry. Descending terraces not only supported agriculture, but acted as shock absorbers, channeling energy from landslides and tremors across a network of stabilized soil and retaining walls. The stepped agricultural platforms reduce pressure on the hillside while providing arable land, integrating survival with sustenance. Layers of gravel and sand beneath these terraces allow water to drain freely, preventing soil saturation that could trigger collapses. Each terrace is carefully graded, and the combination of retaining walls, drainage systems, and step-like slopes demonstrates an understanding of natural forces that extends far beyond simple farming. Below every structure lies a layered foundation of sand, gravel, and fractured rock, while intricately carved channels divert rainwater, ensuring that seismic vibrations do not compromise the city's stability. Foundations often sit atop beds of small stones and sand, which act as shock absorbers and reduce the risk of walls cracking during tremors. The channels that weave between terraces and plazas redirect runoff from heavy rainfall, demonstrating that the city's designers understood both water management and its effects on structural integrity. In combination, these features create a system where earth, water, and architecture function in concert to resist natural threats. Each polygonal block seems uniquely shaped to interlock perfectly with its neighbours, a complex puzzle that diffuses stress and prevents walls from toppling under tremors. The stones are often irregular, yet they fit together so precisely that no mortar was necessary to hold them in place. This polygonal masonry also allows for slight movement during quakes, a feature that has preserved the walls for centuries. Archaeologists studying the city have observed that some stones bear traces of repeated adjustments, suggesting careful testing of fit, angles, and force distribution during construction. Past records and modern studies reveal that Machu Picchu has survived earthquakes that destroyed other Andean settlements, hinting at principles of construction that remain poorly understood. The 20th century earthquake activity in Peru has repeatedly tested the city, yet its terraces and walls remain intact. This resilience provides evidence that the Incas deliberately engineered buildings to endure tremors rather than simply reacting to the landscape. Modern engineers struggle to replicate this stability, even with concrete and reinforced steel, highlighting the sophistication of the Incas' intuitive seismic solutions. Without iron tools or mortar, the Incas sculpted massive stones with a precision that continues to baffle engineers and archaeologists alike, leaving questions about their methods unanswered. The workers relied on stone hammers, bronze tools, and ingenious levering techniques to position blocks that sometimes weighed several tons. Experimental archaeology has demonstrated that similar feats can be achieved today, but only with extensive trial, collaboration, and understanding of force and friction. The methods remain largely speculative, yet the results testify to a level of coordination, planning, and applied physics previously uncredited to pre-Columbian societies. Engineering and ritual were inseparable here. Temples, plazas, and stairways align with celestial and seasonal markers, suggesting that structural design also served spiritual and societal purposes. The Intihuatana stone, for instance, is thought to track the sun's position, while the Temple of the Sun aligns with solstices. Even residential clusters appear carefully placed to honour both the natural landscape and cosmological principles. This integration implies that the Incas did not view architecture solely as shelter or defence, but as a medium for harmonising human activity with celestial and terrestrial cycles. Buildings and terraces conform to the mountain's natural contours, a seamless harmony of architecture and topography that distributes seismic forces while blending with the environment. Staircases, retaining walls, and plazas all follow the ridges, cliffs, and river valleys, minimizing the need to move massive amounts of earth. The city seems to grow out of the rock itself, and careful observation shows that this alignment reduces lateral stress during tremors. Every curve, angle, and elevation appears intentional, a fusion of practicality, observation, and environmental empathy rarely matched in human construction. Even under centuries of heavy rainfall, frost, and seismic shocks, the city's structures remain remarkably intact, demonstrating that the Incas' designs were both precise and resilient. Weathering has left the stones polished and worn, but the walls and terraces have retained their shape. The survival of Machu Picchu through repeated natural hazards attests to a deep understanding of material properties, environmental behaviour, and structural engineering principles that were encoded directly into the city's design. Its endurance is not coincidental. It is the product of deliberate, intelligent planning. Despite decades of study, scholars cannot fully explain how the Incas achieved such enduring stability, leaving Machu Picchu as both a masterpiece of engineering and an unsolved puzzle. Every stairway, channel, and terrace illustrates an advanced understanding of mechanics, hydrology, and geology, yet the exact knowledge, training, and methods behind its creation remain obscured by time. The city offers endless questions. How were stones cut so precisely without metal tools? How did the builders calculate weight distribution across terraces? How did ritual and engineering intertwine to produce a city that has survived so long? Every wall, terrace, and channel whispers of an ancient intelligence that not only built with the mountains, but mastered their hidden rhythms in ways modern engineers have yet to replicate. Nan Madol's megalithic city on the sea. Moving 50-ton basalt columns across a lagoon without modern cranes or vessels remains one of humanity's enduring engineering mysteries. Nan Madol, built by the Sodelur dynasty between the 8th and 13th centuries CE, rises from the waters off the coast of Pohnpei in Micronesia, its network of artificial islets and canals revealing a level of planning and execution that defies conventional understanding. Scholars marvel not only at the scale of the construction but at the precision, organisation and foresight required to build on shifting watery foundations. Every platform, canal and basalt wall hints at a civilization that transformed an oceanic environment into a functional and ceremonial urban complex. The city rises as a grid of artificial islets, each precisely aligned and connected by canals that suggest deliberate urban planning and functional design. More than 90 islets make up the site, forming a labyrinth of stone platforms separated by narrow waterways. The layout is far from haphazard. Foundations and pathways reveal careful attention to flow, both for human movement and for the tidal waters that surround the structures. This organisation suggests that the Sodelur rulers understood the relationship between water, stability and urban form, and that the city's design was informed by both function and status. Massive basalt columns form walls and ceremonial platforms, their weight and dimensions challenging every assumption about ancient transport and construction. Some of the stones, known as prismatic logs, weigh up to 50 tons, with length sometimes exceeding 5 meters. These blocks were not simply piled, they were meticulously arranged to create structures that could withstand time and environmental stress. The precision of placement, the interlocking nature of walls, and the careful levelling all demonstrate knowledge of weight distribution and structural integrity, far beyond what is expected from a pre-industrial island society. Even the closest quarries lie miles away, leaving scholars to puzzle over how stones were manoeuvred across water with simple tools. Basalt was sourced from nearby volcanic outcrops, yet moving blocks of this magnitude across open channels would have required ingenuity, planning, and coordinated labour. Experimental archaeology has suggested methods involving rafts, levers, and rolling techniques, but none fully explain how such heavy and irregular stones were positioned with precision. The transportation and placement of these stones remain as enigmatic as the city itself, hinting at lost knowledge or techniques that have vanished with the Sodelur. Canals wind between the islands, their depth and flow carefully calculated to manage tides, sediment, and seasonal changes in the lagoon. These waterways were not merely decorative or practical for transport, they functioned as dynamic structural components. By channeling tidal currents, the canals reduce pressure on foundations and limit erosion, essentially integrating hydrology into urban engineering. The precision with which each canal was carved, aligned, and maintained suggests that the Sodelur rulers were acutely aware of how water could support both life and architecture in a challenging maritime environment. Stones interlock in patterns that stabilize structures against shifting foundations, erosion, and the subtle movement of water beneath. Walls are built without mortar, relying instead on perfectly fitted basalt blocks, whose weight and arrangement allow them to remain upright despite centuries of environmental stress. Some corners and joints exhibit slight tilts or wedges, deliberately designed to absorb pressure and distribute weight across the platform. This subtle engineering shows that the Sodelur dynasty not only valued the aesthetic of their city, but understood the mechanics of stone, water, and human labour in a way that continues to challenge modern engineers. Elevated platforms and ceremonial enclosures hint at social hierarchy, suggesting that governance and ritual influence the city's very layout. Larger structures appear reserved for rulers or religious leaders, while smaller islets may have housed administrators, artisans, and commoners. The distribution of space implies a complex societal structure, with ceremonial, political, and domestic zones carefully distinguished. Architecture was therefore both a reflection of social organisation and an instrument for reinforcing authority, demonstrating the Sodelur's capacity to integrate engineering with governance and ritual control. Temples, sacred areas, and possible astronomical alignments indicate that architecture and cosmology were inseparably linked in the city's design. Certain platforms align with lunar and solar movements, suggesting that the city was not only functional but also spiritually oriented. Ritual spaces may have dictated the placement of walls, streets, and canals, blending ceremonial needs with engineering constraints. This dual focus on practicality and symbolism adds another layer of complexity to Nan Madol, hinting at a civilization that integrated celestial observation, religious practice, and urban planning into a cohesive whole. Centuries of tides, storms, and tropical exposure have left walls worn but intact, a testament to foresight and mastery of the environment. Despite exposure to typhoons, saltwater, and rising sea levels, the basalt walls of Nan Madol remain remarkably stable. The combination of interlocking stonework, carefully managed canals, and elevated platforms has allowed the city to withstand forces that might have destroyed lesser constructions. The endurance of these structures underscores not only the ingenuity of the Sodalur dynasty, but also their intimate understanding of the lagoon's dynamic, often unpredictable environment. Archaeologists and engineers remain divided over methods, leaving the construction techniques as speculative as the purpose behind certain enigmatic structures. No contemporary written records explain the techniques used, and much of the Sodalur's labour organisation remains conjectural. Some suggest that ritual, governance, and labour coordination allowed the city to be built efficiently, while others focus on potential mechanical innovations lost to history. The lack of definitive answers sustains the mystery, with every stone and canal inviting new questions about the technological capabilities and ambitions of an ancient civilization long vanished. Even as the sea laps at its edges, Nan Madol stands as a monument to human ambition, its full secrets still beyond reach. The city's complexity, from transport logistics to hydraulic engineering and ceremonial layout, continues to astonish scholars. Each islet, wall, and waterway represents a deliberate choice, a conscious integration of human ingenuity and environmental mastery. Its survival challenges assumptions about what small, isolated civilizations could achieve, leaving open the possibility that the Sodalur possessed knowledge that has been lost to time, waiting silently beneath the waves. Every stone and canal whispers of an ancient intelligence that turned ocean and lagoon into a deliberate cityscape, a mastery still impossible to fully comprehend. The Baghdad Battery and early electrochemical knowledge. Buried in layers of ancient debris, a small clay jar hints at a civilization grappling with forces invisible to the naked eye. The artifact, unearthed near Baghdad in the 1930s, belongs to the Parthian or early Sasanian period, roughly 250 BCE to 250 CE, and its purpose has puzzled archaeologists ever since. The jars are unremarkable in size but extraordinary in design, each containing a copper cylinder encasing an iron rod set within a bitumen seal. Scholars have debated whether these objects were everyday containers, ceremonial tools, or components of a technology startlingly ahead of its time. What makes them especially compelling is the possibility that they functioned as rudimentary batteries, capable of producing electrical currents centuries before electricity would be formally discovered. Discovered alongside standard pottery and ceramic fragments, the jars appeared ordinary until researchers examined their components. They were found in Kujut Rabu, a suburb near Baghdad, inside a collection of other artifacts that hinted at domestic ritual or administrative use. The juxtaposition of everyday items with these seemingly technological objects created intrigue, suggesting a civilization that experimented with materials and techniques that might have had functional as well as symbolic value. The careful placement of the iron rod within a copper cylinder, sealed with bitumen, suggests deliberate intent rather than accidental construction, inviting speculation about the knowledge and curiosity of their makers. Inside each jar sits a copper cylinder encasing an iron rod, its proportions and placement meticulously fashioned. The copper was hammered into shape and fitted snugly to hold the rod upright, while the interior was coated with an insulating layer of bitumen. The iron rod's dimensions vary slightly from jar to jar, but all share the same principle of separation and contact with potential liquids introduced later. The precision suggests familiarity with metalworking and an understanding of containment, perhaps designed to preserve a reaction or prevent leakage. These seemingly simple materials, clay, copper, iron, and bitumen, interact in ways that modern science can measure and manipulate, yet their ancient context remains enigmatic. When filled with an acidic liquid, modern experiments suggest these objects could produce a small, measurable electric current, raising questions about purpose and knowledge. Vinegar or lemon juice, when placed between the iron and copper, creates a galvanic reaction capable of generating voltage. The jars themselves are not capable of high amperage, but they could plausibly produce enough current for electroplating or other low-energy tasks. Whether the Parthians or Sasanians had an understanding of this reaction, or merely discovered it accidentally, remains a matter of debate. Yet the design of the jars allows for the possibility, suggesting a conceptual grasp of cause and effect. Scientists have recreated the conditions using various acids, and have succeeded in producing a few volts, confirming that the design is functional as a battery. Reproductions demonstrate that the jars could indeed generate a current sufficient to coat metals with a thin layer of silver or gold, a technique previously thought impossible in ancient Mesopotamia. These experiments reveal that the artifact is more than a curiosity. It is a working model providing tangible evidence that some form of electrochemical knowledge may have existed long before the modern era. However, whether the original creators intended this outcome remains unresolved, sustaining the artifact's aura of mystery. Alternative explanations abound. Some scholars suggest the jars were purely ceremonial, meant to store sacred scrolls or medicinal liquids, their iron rods symbolic rather than functional. Others speculate the jars could have served as containers for religious offerings or alchemical experiments unrelated to electricity. The absence of written records explaining their use leaves room for conjecture, allowing modern observers to project possibilities that range from the mundane to the revolutionary. Each theory reflects a different lens, practical, symbolic, or scientific, but none conclusively solves the puzzle, leaving the artifact suspended between mystery and innovation. The chemical principle is simple yet profound, a galvanic reaction between copper and iron, capable of producing a voltage when mediated by an acidic solution. This reaction forms the basis of all modern batteries, but in ancient Mesopotamia, it would have been an astonishingly sophisticated phenomenon. The arrangement of metals and insulating materials indicates that whoever constructed these jars understood, at least empirically, how different substances interact to produce an unseen effect. Whether they grasped the underlying chemistry or relied on trial and error, the jars demonstrate experimentation and observation consistent with an advanced, inquisitive mind. If intended as a source of electricity, the jars hint at a knowledge of materials and processes far beyond what is typically attributed to ancient civilizations of the region. Metallurgy, ceramics, and insulating compounds all had to be precisely combined to allow the reaction to function without short-circuiting or corroding the jar. The creators may have observed natural electrochemical phenomena, such as lightning strikes on metal or static electricity, and sought to replicate the effect artificially. The implications are profound, a civilization manipulating electrical energy long before modern science recognized its principles, merging craftsmanship with an experimental approach. Ritual or ceremonial use cannot be discounted, however. Objects in Mesopotamian culture frequently blended practical and spiritual purposes, and it is plausible that the jars served multiple functions simultaneously. They may have been displayed, handled, or incorporated into religious rites, their design conveying symbolic authority as well as latent scientific capability. This duality enhances the enigma. The jars could represent both a technical experiment and a cultural artifact, blurring the line between science and ritual in ways that modern observers struggle to interpret fully. Despite decades of analysis, debate persists. Archaeologists, chemists, and historians have yet to reach consensus on whether the jars functioned as batteries, ritual objects, or something entirely different. The scarcity of similar artifacts limits comparative study, and the loss of contextual evidence over centuries complicates interpretation. Some experts caution against overestimating their technological significance, while others point to experimental evidence as proof of hidden sophistication. This tension sustains the artifact's allure, leaving it suspended in a state of uncertainty between history and hypothesis, science and speculation. Its modest appearance conceals a profound puzzle, a testament to curiosity and ingenuity that transcends time. The jars themselves are small, unassuming, yet they embody questions about human experimentation, observation, and the drive to manipulate natural forces. They challenge assumptions about what ancient societies could achieve, suggesting that the manipulation of electricity, or at least electrochemical processes, may not be exclusive to the modern era. The artifact quietly prompts us to reconsider the boundaries of historical knowledge, and the ingenuity of civilizations long thought technologically limited. A simple jar buried for millennia may hold a spark of a knowledge that modern science is only beginning to imagine. Petra's hydraulic mastery in the desert. In a landscape where rain can vanish in hours and the desert swallows everything, Petra thrived through hidden channels of life-giving water. The city, carved into rose-red cliffs, is often admired for its facades, but its true marvel lies in the invisible networks that allowed a bustling population to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. The Nabateans, who established Petra around the 4th century BCE, were masters not only of trade but of hydrology, anticipating the challenges of scarcity and designing solutions that were both practical and enduring. Their water systems, woven seamlessly into the terrain, were sophisticated enough to make modern engineers pause in admiration and wonder. The Nabateans, skilled desert traders, carved a city that would defy aridity for centuries, blending survival with architectural brilliance. Positioned at the crossroads of caravan routes, Petra needed a reliable water supply to support merchants, residents, and livestock. They could not rely solely on rainfall, which is erratic and often destructive in the desert, nor on nearby springs, which were few and seasonal. The civilization's survival depended on ingenuity, observation, and long-term planning, resulting in a hydraulic system that channeled, stored, and distributed water with remarkable precision, ensuring that even during prolonged dry spells, the city could sustain life and commerce. Massive cliffs and winding canyons were not obstacles but tools, guiding rainfall and spring water into storage and supply systems. The Nabateans carved channels into the sandstone to direct runoff from occasional storms, capturing torrents that would otherwise flood or erode the city. Strategic placement of dams, diversion walls, and sluices allowed them to control water flow, reducing sediment buildup while maximizing storage in reservoirs. These geological advantages were enhanced by human ingenuity, creating a symbiotic relationship between city and landscape where every canyon and crevice was part of an intricate, concealed water network that both protected and sustained Petra. Rock-cut cisterns, some holding tens of thousands of litres, served as invisible reservoirs that sustained urban life through the driest months. These cisterns, hewn directly into the cliff face or carved beneath courtyards, were carefully sealed with plaster to prevent leakage and evaporation. Archaeologists have documented hundreds of such reservoirs throughout Petra, varying in size and function, some connected to multiple channels while others stood independently. They allowed the city to store water year-round, creating a level of self-sufficiency rarely seen in desert civilizations. The precision and foresight required to construct such cisterns suggest an advanced understanding of capacity, water retention, and seasonal variability. A complex network of aqueducts, conduits, and pipes connected cisterns to homes, markets, and temples, distributing water with remarkable precision. Stone channels, ceramic pipes, and carved troughs transported water across steep cliffs and winding streets, maintaining a steady flow without modern pumps or equipment. Engineers accounted for gradients, pressure, and sedimentation, ensuring that water reached multiple districts and could even supply public fountains. In some areas, overflow systems prevented erosion and damage during flash floods. The network was extensive, linking natural springs to urban infrastructure, demonstrating a level of civil engineering and logistical planning rarely matched in ancient times. Gravity, gradient, and sediment control reveal a deep understanding of hydraulics that modern engineers still study to comprehend fully. The channels were sloped just enough to move water efficiently while minimizing velocity that could erode the channels themselves. Settling basins and sediment traps filtered debris before it reached critical reservoirs. The Nabateans observed and manipulated flow patterns to maintain reliability, a practice that reflects careful observation and trial and error learning. Their work shows not only technical skill but empirical knowledge of fluid dynamics, predating much of the theoretical understanding that would emerge centuries later in Europe and the Middle East. The layout of streets, plazas, and dwellings was dictated as much by water flow as by human movement, shaping daily life in subtle ways. Residential quarters were positioned near water channels, ensuring easy access for daily chores, while marketplaces and communal spaces were strategically supplied to prevent shortages. Temples and ceremonial spaces often received a prominent water source, emphasizing both utility and symbolic value. This integration of hydraulic infrastructure into urban planning reveals that water was not merely a necessity, but a guiding principle in Petra's design, influencing architecture, traffic flow, and social interaction in ways that modern urban planners still find instructive. Monumental fountains and ritual pools intertwined function with ceremony, demonstrating how water nourished both body and belief. Elaborate reservoirs and channels fed decorative pools and fountains at temple complexes and public squares, underscoring water's sacred and social significance. Some scholars suggest that water was incorporated into religious rites, representing life, purification, or divine favour, enhancing the symbolic power of the city's architecture. In this way, water served dual purposes: practical, sustaining life and trade, and cultural, reinforcing societal cohesion and spiritual beliefs. Every drop was both a resource and a statement of human ingenuity in harmony with nature. Seasonal floods, erosion and silt required constant maintenance, yet the Nabateans adapted their engineering to withstand the harsh desert environment. Channels were periodically cleaned, dams reinforced, and sediment traps adjusted to maintain flow. During sudden flash floods, excess water could be redirected safely, preventing destruction of homes and infrastructure. This vigilance reflects a long-term strategy of observation, adaptation, and maintenance that required a combination of technical skill and organizational oversight. The city's ability to endure centuries of environmental pressures attests to the robustness and foresight of its hydraulic design, suggesting a civilization far ahead of its time in practical engineering. Archaeologists continue to uncover hidden channels and evaluate construction methods, yet the ingenuity behind some techniques remains unexplained. Recent surveys using drones and 3D mapping have revealed subterranean channels and concealed reservoirs that indicate the Nabateans exploited natural pressures and gradients in ways that are still being understood. Despite decades of study, gaps remain in understanding how certain features functioned or how knowledge of hydraulics was transmitted and preserved. These unanswered questions sustain the mystery of Petra, inviting speculation about lost techniques, the expertise of its engineers, and the broader technological capabilities of the Nabatean civilization. Every carved channel and reservoir stands as a testament to a civilization capable of controlling scarcity, with ingenuity that seems almost supernatural. The city's enduring survival in a hostile desert demonstrates that the Nabateans achieved a balance between environmental constraints and human needs. The seamless integration of water management into urban design reflects both creativity and deep observational knowledge, revealing a civilization that understood the rhythms of nature and manipulated them with precision. Modern engineers and architects continue to study Petra not only for its beauty, but for its ingenious water infrastructure, which continues to function in many areas despite centuries of abandonment and decay. In the heart of stone and sand, the silent rivers carved by ancient hands continue to whisper secrets that modern engineers are still struggling to fully decipher. The Roman concrete that refuses to crumble. Few human creations endure with the silent resilience of Roman concrete, surviving storms, earthquakes, and centuries of neglect. Its endurance is most evident in structures that have faced relentless weather, shifting ground, and even volcanic activity, yet remain intact. While modern buildings crumble in mere decades, Roman concrete has lasted over 2 millennia, leaving engineers and archaeologists questioning the knowledge embedded in its composition. It is not just the grandeur of the Pantheon or aqueducts that astonishes, but the hidden chemistry that has allowed these structures to defy time, a secret locked within the stone-like substance that once revolutionized construction across the Roman Empire. The Romans built cities, harbours, and monumental structures that still stand, their longevity hinting at a mastery of materials now lost. From the colonnades of temples to the foundations of roads and bridges, every application demonstrates precision in material selection and technique. Historical accounts mention the use of opus caementicium, a blend of lime, volcanic ash, and aggregate, which was poured and moulded into forms to create durable walls, vaults, and domes. Each site reveals subtle adaptations depending on location, climate, and function, showing a civilization that applied practical science with an awareness of long-term consequences unknown to later builders. Volcanic ash, lime, and carefully chosen stone combined in ways that produced a material stronger and more enduring than most modern concretes. Pozzolana, a fine volcanic ash from specific regions in Italy, reacts chemically with lime and water to form a crystalline bond that strengthens over time. Aggregates such as tuff, pumice, or broken rock provided volume and structural integrity, while the proportions were adjusted to suit climate, proximity to salt water, and intended load-bearing requirements. This combination created a chemical resilience and compressive strength rarely seen even in modern cement, leaving researchers to marvel at the Romans' empirical mastery of ingredients. When mixed with water, the ash and lime undergo a chemical reaction that strengthens over time, forming a matrix that resists cracking and decay. Unlike modern concrete, which can deteriorate as aggregates separate or binders weaken, Roman concrete continues to harden centuries after it was first poured. This slow, persistent chemical process, known as pozzolanic reaction, allows the material to absorb cracks and self-repair minor fractures over decades. The result is material that adapts to stress, erosion, and environmental extremes, hinting at an understanding of long-term material behavior that even today would require precise engineering knowledge and experimentation. Along Mediterranean shores, Roman harbours have withstood relentless waves for over 2,000 years, a testament to ingenuity buried in mineral chemistry. Salt water, which destroys most concrete within decades, has failed to reduce Roman maritime structures to rubble. The inclusion of volcanic ash in the mix created compounds that chemically interact with seawater to form luminous tobermorite crystals, reinforcing the concrete matrix over centuries. Port piers, breakwaters, and submerged foundations reveal not just a practical approach to construction, but an almost prescient anticipation of long-term degradation, turning the concrete itself into a living, enduring material. Inland structures, from amphitheatres to aqueducts, reveal the same durability, defying erosion and the centuries that consume lesser materials. The Colosseum, for example, has survived earthquakes, stone theft, and exposure to elements while still standing remarkably complete. Aqueducts spanning hillsides have resisted erosion, maintaining alignment and flow despite centuries of neglect. The material's resilience was enhanced by construction techniques such as layering, surface finishing, and the careful orientation of forms to shed water, demonstrating an integrated approach in which material properties, environment, and structural design worked in concert. The methods of mixing, layering, and curing reveal an empirical understanding of material science, carefully honed to maximize longevity. Roman builders may have controlled the temperature, moisture, and settling time to ensure optimal chemical reactions. Layers of concrete were poured sequentially, sometimes allowing each to partially set before adding the next, creating a composite structure with reinforced cohesion. Even the tools and forms used would have affected the final material behavior, showing attention to both macroscopic and microscopic effects. Each decision in the process reflected practical experimentation over generations, culminating in a material optimized for endurance and utility. Modern scientists study samples with microscopes and chemical analysis, uncovering complex interactions that even advanced technology struggles to replicate. Spectroscopic studies reveal crystalline structures that bind water and repair microfractures, while microscopy shows the intergrowth of minerals that provide tensile strength. Attempts to reproduce the formula often fail to achieve the same longevity, as modern cements lack the same subtle combination of pozzolanic reaction and aggregate distribution. These studies highlight both the sophistication of Roman empiricism and the challenges contemporary engineers face in understanding and emulating an ancient practice that has withstood millennia. Critical details remain elusive, including the precise ratios, layering techniques, and environmental adjustments Romans employed, keeping the mystery alive. Archaeologists debate whether certain ingredients were locally sourced or selectively transported, and how builders accounted for seasonal variations or microclimatic conditions. Even with centuries of observation, the recipe for Roman concrete has not been perfectly reproduced in a laboratory. Every surviving structure offers clues yet preserves secrecy, leaving a civilization's empirical knowledge tantalizingly out of reach and hinting at methods that were advanced beyond what we might expect for their era. The material enabled urban expansion and monumental architecture, demonstrating how knowledge of substances could shape entire societies and economies. Roads, bridges, and harbours allowed trade and military movement across vast distances, while buildings that lasted generations symbolized permanence, power, and civic pride. Roman engineers understood that infrastructure longevity was not merely aesthetic but strategic, affecting commerce, taxation, and urban planning. The concrete itself became a silent tool of empire, a material capable of outlasting empires themselves, and a tangible record of a civilization that mastered both practical engineering and the subtle chemistry of enduring construction. Each surviving structure serves as a silent monument to a civilization whose practical ingenuity and experimentation were centuries ahead of their time. From the submerged piers of harbours to the vaulted domes of temples, Roman concrete continues to challenge assumptions about the limits of ancient engineering. Its endurance reminds us that materials, when combined with observation, experimentation, and adaptation, can transcend the knowledge of future generations. The legacy of Roman concrete is not merely architectural, it is a lesson in understanding, patience, and the hidden potential of the empirical science. Among arches and piers that have weathered centuries, the secret of Roman concrete whispers a challenge that modern science has yet to conquer. Mohenjo-daro's urban planning ahead of its time. Not many ancient cities reveal a level of planning that rivals Mohenjo-daro, where streets, homes, and public spaces reflect careful design and foresight. From the moment one steps onto its ancient streets, the organisation of the city becomes evident, blocks aligned with near-perfect precision, avenues intersecting at right angles, and public spaces deliberately set apart from residential zones. Every corner, every pathway hints at forethought, as if the city were a living blueprint for urban life thousands of years before similar concepts emerged elsewhere. The regularity of the grid challenges assumptions about the cognitive and administrative skills of early civilizations, hinting at knowledge of measurement, geometry, and spatial logic that seems almost modern. Established around 2500 BCE, the city emerges from the Indus Valley civilization as a hub of urban sophistication far beyond what many contemporaneous settlements achieved. At its peak, Mohenjo-daro may have housed tens of thousands of inhabitants, all moving within a carefully structured environment that balanced commerce, domestic life, and public order. Trade networks connected the city to distant regions, allowing the import of raw materials, luxury items, and tools that likely supported its meticulous construction. The density of buildings and the consistent street grid suggest a level of civic oversight that allowed a large population to live and work with minimal congestion or disorder, an achievement rarely seen in the ancient world. Straight, perpendicular streets carve the city into orderly blocks, creating a grid that suggests both intentional design and a profound understanding of spatial organisation. Unlike the haphazard layouts of many early settlements, Mohenjo-daro's avenues are meticulously planned, forming a matrix that optimises movement and access. Main streets are wide enough to accommodate pedestrian and animal traffic, while narrower side lanes lead to residential clusters and courtyards. The hierarchy of streets may have served functional purposes, from commerce to ceremonial processions, revealing a subtle yet deliberate control over the flow of life within the city. Tunnels and channels running below the city channel wastewater away from homes, revealing a concern for public hygiene that predates similar systems by millennia. Each home seems to have been connected to drains that flowed into larger covered channels, creating an integrated sewage network that protected residents from flooding and contamination. Some channels show evidence of brick lining and careful levelling, demonstrating an understanding of fluid dynamics. Rainwater management, waste disposal, and sanitation were not afterthoughts, but core components of urban design. The very existence of these systems demonstrates a civilization capable of planning beyond immediate survival, anticipating the long-term needs of an urban population. Uniform bricks and standardized construction techniques indicate not only material consistency, but a civilization-wide agreement on architectural norms and quality. Every brick appears crafted to precise dimensions, allowing walls to fit together seamlessly and structures to bear weight efficiently. This uniformity suggests that Mohenjo-daro had methods for enforcing construction standards, perhaps through guilds of skilled labourers or regulatory oversight. The durability of these structures, which have survived millennia despite exposure to floods, earthquakes, and soil erosion, speaks to both the quality of materials and the foresight embedded in design. Standardization also implies the sharing of technical knowledge across a wide geographic and social span, hinting at sophisticated communication systems. Residential neighborhoods sit alongside marketplaces and public structures with deliberate spacing, balancing private life and civic engagement with precision. Homes often feature central courtyards, private wells, and enclosed spaces that provide comfort and security. Public buildings and plazas appear strategically positioned to facilitate social interaction, governance, and commerce without encroaching on domestic tranquility. The interplay between private and communal areas reflects an advanced understanding of urban sociology, indicating that planners considered not only the physical needs of residents, but also the psychological and social dimensions of city life. Wells, reservoirs, and controlled channels provide reliable water access, demonstrating foresight in hydrology and a capacity to mitigate seasonal shortages. The city's planners ensured that clean water was available across all neighborhoods, using gravity-fed systems and storage facilities to manage supply. Water sources are often elevated or connected to cisterns, allowing distribution even during periods of low rainfall. By anticipating fluctuations in groundwater and seasonal shifts, they reduce the risks of scarcity, disease, and unrest, allowing a large population to thrive in an otherwise challenging environment. Such foresight underscores the intersection of practical engineering and long-term civic planning. Such meticulous planning implies a civic authority capable of regulating construction, managing resources, and orchestrating projects across an entire urban expanse. Decisions about street width, building orientation, and infrastructure placement suggest centralized oversight. Enforcing consistency and order without the explicit guidance of surviving written codes. Labor forces would have needed coordination, materials distribution, and timing, implying bureaucratic structures capable of supervising complex projects. The coherence of the city, with its uniform bricks, aligned streets, and integrated systems, reflects both a vision for the collective good and the capacity to implement it across thousands of people. Careful examination of the ruins with modern technology reveals the sophistication embedded in streets, homes, and drainage systems. Ground-penetrating radar, aerial imaging, and chemical analysis uncover hidden networks and subtle design choices invisible to the naked eye. Researchers have identified differences in construction that suggest experimentation and adaptation, implying that the city evolved according to both environmental and social pressures. Each discovery adds layers to our understanding, yet the methods used by the original builders remain largely speculative, leaving the city's ingenuity both revealed and tantalizingly elusive. Many questions remain unanswered. The precise methods of surveying, the coordination of labor, and the reasons for eventual abandonment keep the city's secrets intact. How did engineers measure such long distances and align streets so precisely without standardized tools? Why did such an advanced urban culture vanish, leaving few traces of its governance or planning manuals? And why did similar urban sophistication fail to appear elsewhere for centuries? These unresolved mysteries lend Mohenjo-daro an enduring aura of intellectual enigma, positioning it as a civilization whose knowledge challenges modern assumptions about ancient capabilities. Each surviving block, street, and drain stands as a testament to an intelligence that envisioned a city in ways that continue to astonish and inspire. The precision, foresight, and durability of Mohenjo-daro's infrastructure show that its planners were not merely builders, but social engineers, engineers of knowledge, and visionaries of urban life. Every feature, from sewage channels to marketplaces, speaks to a civilization that mastered coordination, standardization, and public welfare, achieving feats that remain exceptional even by modern standards. Amid streets and drains that have survived millennia, Mohenjo-daro silently challenges our understanding of how ancient minds conceived entire cities with uncanny precision. The Nazca lines and geoglyphs visible only from the sky. From high above the barren plains of southern Peru, vast patterns emerge, stretching across the desert like deliberate messages etched into the earth. The Nazca culture, flourishing between roughly 500 BCE and 500 CE, left behind a network of lines and figures that defy conventional explanations. Some depict animals, including monkeys, hummingbirds, and spiders, while others take the form of abstract geometric shapes or long, perfectly straight lines. The sheer scale and precision of these designs suggest planning and coordination on an extraordinary level, challenging assumptions about what a pre-Columbian civilization could conceive. Observed from the ground, the designs are nearly invisible, but from above they transform into something that seems almost otherworldly, leaving researchers questioning how such visions were realized. Beneath the relentless sun and over parched soil, the desert preserves these lines with an almost unnatural fidelity, allowing some of the geoglyphs to survive for over a millennium. The terrain itself is remarkably flat, a feature that likely facilitated the creation of long, unbroken lines. Minimal rainfall and stable climate conditions contributed to their longevity, but even with these advantages, the precision of alignment is astonishing. Evidence suggests that the Nazca people understood how to exploit the natural landscape, placing their figures in areas that would remain visible and undisturbed for generations. This environmental awareness hints at a level of observation and foresight rarely attributed to ancient cultures. Some figures span hundreds of meters, their proportions so precise that they could only have been imagined on a grand scale before being realized in the sand. The hummingbird, for instance, stretches nearly 100 meters from beak to tail, while straight lines extend for kilometers across the plains, intersecting at angles that remain remarkably consistent. Achieving this magnitude would require a method for measuring and scaling designs over vast distances without the benefit of modern surveying instruments. Each line's width remains uniform along its length, indicating a controlled and deliberate process rather than random marking. The sheer ambition of these works challenges what is assumed possible in a civilization without aerial perspective. Careful excavations reveal shallow trenches and displaced stones, yet the methods used to maintain geometric accuracy across vast distances remain uncertain. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of simple wooden stakes placed at intervals, perhaps serving as guides for creating straight lines or geometric patterns. Even so, the scale of some figures and the precision of their curves suggest an advanced understanding of proportion, sightlines, and measurement that is difficult to reconcile with known tools of the time. The apparent ease with which the Nazca manipulated the desert's surface belies a complexity of planning and execution that continues to fascinate researchers today. The true impact of these geoglyphs becomes apparent only from the sky, prompting questions about whether they were meant for human eyes or some higher observation. Many scholars propose that the designs held ceremonial significance, possibly related to water, fertility, or religious practices. Others theorize they served as astronomical markers, or that the lines themselves were paths walked during ritual processions. Whatever their purpose, the visibility from a high vantage point remains one of the most puzzling aspects. Without aircraft or elevated observation points, the creators must have had an intimate knowledge of proportion, scale, and perspective, and perhaps a conceptual vision that extended beyond what was immediately perceptible. Lines that converge toward the horizon suggest alignments with solstices and celestial events, implying that their creators possessed an extraordinary understanding of the heavens. Some straight avenues align with the rising and setting sun at key points of the year, while certain shapes may correlate with constellations or planetary movements. Researchers caution against overinterpretation, yet the precision and intentionality are evident. These alignments indicate that the Nazca were not simply artistic but also systematic, incorporating astronomical observations into their desert canvas. The ability to connect terrestrial designs with celestial phenomena underscores a remarkable sophistication rarely attributed to societies of the same era. Constructing such immense designs would have required coordination, labour organisation, and shared knowledge, hinting at a civilization with sophisticated social structures. Teams of workers likely collaborated over months or even years to create the largest figures, maintaining straight lines and precise curves without modern measurement devices. The complexity of such projects suggests oversight, planning, and perhaps a hierarchy of skilled labourers or specialists. Far from being isolated acts of artistry, the geoglyphs reflect collective effort, implying that social cohesion and knowledge sharing were integral to the city-states of the Nazca culture. It was not until the age of flight that their full magnitude was revealed, captured from the air in photographs that transformed mystery into measurable form. Pilots and aerial surveyors were astonished by the sheer number and variety of the lines, many of which were invisible from the ground. Subsequent mapping and satellite imaging have uncovered previously unknown designs, geometric patterns, and animal figures, each reinforcing the sense of scale and precision. Modern tools have revealed a level of sophistication in measurement, layout, and execution that continues to challenge scholars, raising the question of whether other secrets lie hidden, still undiscovered beneath the desert sands. Even with modern surveys and mapping technology, many lines remain enigmatic, their symbolic meanings lost or only partially understood. Some images appear in clusters, others isolated, and the purpose of long intersecting lines remains unclear. Debates continue about whether the figures functioned as ritual paths, markers of water sources, calendars, or a combination of purposes. Chemical analysis of the soil indicates careful preparation, suggesting that the Nazca intentionally chose their materials to create high contrast and longevity. Despite centuries of research, the reasoning behind the alignment, scale, and selection of images continues to elude definitive explanation, leaving a veil of mystery over the landscape. In scale and intent, the Nazca lines surpass many contemporary monuments, challenging assumptions about the observational and mathematical capabilities of early civilizations. They demonstrate that human creativity and planning could manifest not only in enduring structures, but also in ephemeral materials like desert sand. The combination of artistry, astronomy, and engineering raises profound questions about how knowledge was transmitted, how coordination was achieved, and what motivations drove such monumental projects. In many ways, the Nazca lines occupy a unique place in history. They're simultaneously a work of imagination, a technical achievement, and an enigma that defies easy categorization. For every line etched into the desert, for every figure traced with meticulous care, the Nazca people left a legacy that continues to captivate and puzzle. Their choices reflect deliberate intent, yet the ultimate purpose of the lines remains elusive. Unlike monuments built for human observation, these creations require an elevated perspective to be fully understood, hinting at a worldview or ritual significance that modern observers can only speculate about. Each survey, flight, and study unveils more complexity, yet the sense of awe and unanswered questions grows rather than diminishes. From the ground, they appear as nothing more than scratches, yet from above, the ancient patterns hint at secrets the earth itself seems unwilling to reveal. Derinkuyu, the underground city beneath Cappadocia. Descending into the hidden chambers of Derinkuyu, the air grows cooler and the walls seem to close in, revealing a civilization that thrived below the earth. The soft, tough rock, worn smooth by centuries of passage, gives a sense of permanence, yet the shadows suggest secrets that even the most thorough excavations have yet to uncover. Historians trace its earliest uses to Byzantine adaptations, though some evidence hints at pre-Christian origins, implying that generations of inhabitants transformed the subterranean maze to meet shifting needs. Each step deeper carries both awe and unease, as if the city itself is aware of being observed. The scale alone, with floors plunging into darkness, challenges modern imagination. The volcanic tuff of Cappadocia, soft enough to carve yet resilient enough to endure centuries, offered the perfect canvas for an underground world. The region's landscape, shaped by eruptions and erosion, created natural formations that the inhabitants exploited for shelter and concealment. Hills became protective covers, while the porous rock made multi-level excavation feasible without modern machinery. In addition to its practical benefits, the rock allowed for precise shaping. Tunnels maintain uniform height, chambers accommodate hundreds of people, and passageways twist strategically to confuse anyone unfamiliar with the layout. Natural ventilation and drainage channels were incorporated seamlessly, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of environmental engineering that is rarely credited to ancient societies. Over 18 levels of interconnected tunnels and rooms unfold, from stables and kitchens to living quarters, forming a subterranean metropolis of astonishing scale. Archaeologists have documented stairways carved with care, halls large enough to serve entire families, and storage rooms built to preserve grain and supplies for months. Animal pens appear alongside communal kitchens, suggesting the city could sustain livestock for extended periods. Even at the lower levels, the chambers are remarkably well proportioned, showing that the builders were not only focused on functionality, but also on maintaining a livable environment despite the lack of natural light. Maps reveal an intricate network that extends hundreds of meters, demonstrating the commitment and labor required to construct such a feat. Each passage bears the marks of careful chiseling, while massive stone doors balanced on pivot points hint at defensive strategies both practical and ingenious. The gates, round and perfectly fitted into recesses, could be rolled into place to seal an entire level within minutes, effectively isolating it from intruders. Hallways narrow and widen in deliberate patterns, with some corridors ending at hidden staircases or dead ends, creating natural defences. Evidence of tool marks shows meticulous planning and repetition, yet the precise techniques remain largely speculative. How a society without iron machinery orchestrated such complex construction continues to puzzle experts, raising questions about both the knowledge and coordination of the labour force. Slender, vertical shafts pierce the rock, carrying fresh air to the deepest floors, a silent testament to the engineering insight of a people long vanished. Some shafts double as wells, providing water while ensuring circulation of oxygen throughout the city's lower levels. Others serve as hidden escape routes or secret observation points, demonstrating versatility in design. Calculations must have accounted for population size, depth, and air quality, yet no written records explain how these builders perfected such systems. The shafts are often narrow, just wide enough for a single person, which would have limited airflow if improperly placed, showing that the ancient architects understood more about aerodynamics than previously assumed. Cisterns and wells punctuate the tunnels, designed to sustain life for extended periods, their placement revealing meticulous planning and forethought. Water collection systems channel runoff from the surface into underground reservoirs, preventing contamination while ensuring access throughout the city. Storage niches lined with pottery or stone allowed inhabitants to keep grains, oils, and other essentials dry for months. The combination of water management and food preservation suggests that Derinkuyu was intended for long-term habitation, not temporary refuge, capable of sheltering thousands in times of conflict or disaster. The integration of these systems into the natural rock further underscores the ingenuity of its builders. Narrow corridors twist and turn, often ending at heavy stone gates or trapdoors, as if the city itself were a labyrinth designed to repel intruders. Strategic choke points allowed defenders to control access to critical levels, while false corridors and angled hallways confused potential attackers. Some passageways are so tight that only a single person can pass, creating bottlenecks that could be easily defended. The combination of scale, secrecy, and defensive design implies a level of urban planning far beyond what might be expected in a society without written architectural codes. Each turn and barrier tells a story of calculated security measures developed over generations. Among the living quarters lie chapels and communal halls, spaces where daily rituals persisted even deep below the surface, maintaining culture and concealment. Archaeologists have uncovered rock-hewn altars and niches for religious artifacts, demonstrating that spiritual life was integrated into subterranean existence. Families shared common areas for cooking and gathering, while children and elders adapted to the dim, enclosed spaces. This continuity of social structure underground suggests a sophisticated understanding of human needs and community cohesion, highlighting that survival alone did not dictate the city's design. Culture and daily life were preserved intentionally. It was not until 1963 that a hidden entrance brought Derinkuyu to light, stunning explorers with its labyrinthine complexity and revealing only part of its story. Local residents had long known of small openings, but the discovery of fully accessible levels astonished both archaeologists and historians. Initial surveys underestimated the number of floors, and as excavation progressed, new chambers appeared, often blocked by rubble or collapsed rock. Modern exploration remains painstaking, with much of the lower city still inaccessible to the public, ensuring that the full extent of this subterranean marvel continues to be a mystery. Even after decades of excavation, the origins of the deepest levels remain unknown, and researchers continue to speculate about purposes that extend beyond mere shelter. Some suggest the city served religious or ritual functions, while others argue it was a refuge from invaders or natural disasters. Connections to nearby underground networks raise the possibility of a regional strategy for survival, yet definitive evidence is scarce. What is clear is that the creators possessed knowledge and coordination far exceeding expectations for their era, blending practicality, security, and sustainability in a way that continues to challenge modern understanding. Every carved passage, every hidden chamber, speaks to human ingenuity and a desire for survival that transforms stone into a city untouched by time. the meticulous planning, the integration of natural resources, and the clever use of space reflect a civilization that thrived in secrecy, leaving no written record but a lasting architectural legacy. The city is a testament to problem-solving under extreme conditions, balancing defense, habitability, and culture in a subterranean environment. Each discovery within Derinkuyu hints at further complexities, suggesting that even after decades of study, the city's full story remains hidden. In the midst of rolling hills, Derinkuyu continues to whisper secrets, a hidden civilization waiting silently to be understood. Sacsayhuaman's Cyclopean walls in Cusco. Nothing prepares the eye for the staggering enormity of Sacsayhuaman, where stone blocks rise in staggered tiers with a precision that seems impossible even by modern standards. Visitors approaching the site are immediately confronted with walls that appear almost alive, their perfectly angled surfaces casting shadows that shift with the sun. Each level of the fortress tells a story of intention and labour, of hands shaping rock to fit an exact vision, and yet no written record explains the methods employed. The sheer scale is disorienting. Human perception struggles to grasp the enormity of stones meticulously aligned across an expansive hillside above Cusco. Each massive boulder, some weighing more than 100 tons, interlocks with its neighbours so tightly that a blade of grass cannot slip between them, defying conventional expectations of ancient construction. Stones are cut with edges so precise they seem carved to fit by calculation rather than laborious trial. Their weight alone would challenge contemporary engineering, yet the Incas lifted, manoeuvred, and joined them with a mastery that has left generations of architects and engineers astonished. Even small gaps or misalignments are impossible to find. The wall's surface is a seamless expanse of geometric perfection that continues to evoke awe. Speculation swirls around how these stones were quarried, transported, and positioned without iron tools, cranes, or draft animals, leaving historians to marvel at what must have been an extraordinary feat of coordination and skill. Some theories suggest wooden sledges and lubricated tracks, others propose teams of hundreds working in unison, yet no evidence definitively confirms the method. The logistical challenge is compounded by the irregular shapes of many stones, each uniquely carved to interlock with its neighbours, demanding foresight and measurements that exceed what many assume of pre-Columbian engineering knowledge. The wall's undulating zigzag pattern suggests more than mere aesthetics. They appear designed both to repel attackers and to impress observers with their monumental scale. Each angular turn creates strategic vantage points while funneling potential assailants into predictable paths. Simultaneously, the pattern conveys a visual rhythm that transforms the walls into a symbolic statement, an architectural language of power and permanence. The zigzag contours, perfectly aligned with natural ridges, make the fortress appear simultaneously natural and engineered, blending defense with an intentional statement of dominance over both landscape and city below. Seismic activity in the Andes has tested Sacsayhuaman for centuries, yet the interlocking stones absorb shocks in ways that continue to baffle engineers studying their resilience. Earthquakes that topple modern constructions leave these walls mostly unscathed, the precise fit of irregular stones allowing subtle movement without collapse. Small channels between blocks act as shock absorbers, a technique seemingly ahead of its time, while the weight and tapering shapes create stability. The site's continued integrity in a region prone to tremors challenges assumptions about ancient materials and design principles, implying that the Incas understood forces and structures at a level modern experts are still deciphering. Within the fortress, ceremonial terraces and platforms hint at a culture that fused military strategy with ritual significance, elevating the fortress beyond mere defense into a spiritual statement. Platforms likely hosted religious ceremonies, while stone arrangements may align with astronomical markers. Some terraces are carefully oriented to capture sunlight during solstices, suggesting that Sacsayhuaman served as a calendar of sorts, bridging sacred time with civic and defensive utility. The fortress, therefore, is more than stone and mortar. It embodies a worldview in which engineering, spirituality, and society are inseparable, crafted with deliberation to last across generations. From its vantage point overlooking Cusco, Sacsayhuaman aligns with the city's intricate layout, revealing a level of urban planning that integrates geography, astronomy, and social organization. Streets, plazas, and ceremonial centres radiate outward, connecting the fortress to residential zones and marketplaces. Elevation and orientation create lines of sight that may have reinforced governance, ritual, and surveillance. The intentionality of this design suggests that Sacsayhuaman was not merely a fortress, but a cornerstone of Inca urban strategy, its presence shaping both daily life and the spiritual landscape. The mystery deepens when considering the transportation of stones. Quarries lie miles away, and yet the blocks were shaped and positioned with astonishing precision, leaving no clear evidence of how it was accomplished. Some stones were moved over uneven terrain, likely requiring coordinated teams, levers, and possibly earthen ramps. Others appear carved to fit specific locations before leaving the quarry, a planning process that demands measurements and visualization methods sophisticated for the time. The absence of definitive tools or mechanical evidence transforms Sacsayhuaman into a riddle, a site whose realization seems almost supernatural, a triumph of organization and knowledge now lost. Archaeologists documenting the site note subtle variations in stone angles and finishes, some so exacting that even modern machinery would struggle to replicate them. Faces are polished to fit neighbouring blocks with near-zero tolerance, while corners are chamfered to allow seamless interlocking. These minute adjustments suggest iterative problem-solving, advanced geometry, or knowledge of material stress, applied in ways that continue to challenge assumptions about pre-industrial skill. Every wall, every stone becomes a testament to a civilization that mastered both the brute force of labour and the subtlety of precision. Questions remain unanswered about certain walls that diverge slightly in orientation or feature unique cuts, as if intentionally coded to convey knowledge lost to time. Scholars debate whether these anomalies reflect astronomical alignment, ritual symbolism, or adaptive responses to landscape constraints. Even centuries of study cannot fully explain why certain stones seem oversized, why some walls shift subtly in direction, or how individual blocks achieve their uncanny fit. Each unexplained feature deepens the sense that Sacsayhuaman was not merely functional but encoded with meaning, preserving secrets in plain sight. The ingenuity required to construct Sacsayhuaman reflects a civilization that mastered both material and spatial challenges, leaving behind a monument that continues to inspire and confound. Every terrace, platform and wall demonstrates meticulous planning, visionary understanding of structural forces, and an integration of culture, spirituality, and military purpose. The fortress's enduring presence challenges our modern assumptions about pre-industrial societies, revealing that human creativity and technical mastery are not bound by technology, but by vision and collective determination. Perched atop the hills of Cusco, Sacsayhuaman stands as a silent sentinel, concealing the full extent of the Inca's architectural secrets from anyone who dares to measure its stones. Chichen Itza and the pyramid that tracks the sun. The ancient city of Chichen Itza, nestled in the dense Yucatan jungle of Mexico, was once a thriving center of Maya civilization, whose influence stretched across the peninsula. Among its many temples and ceremonial structures, the Pyramid of El Castillo, also known as the Temple of Kukulkan, has captivated scholars and travelers for centuries, not only for its imposing height, but for the astronomical sophistication encoded in its very stones. The Maya, a civilization renowned for their advanced understanding of time and the cosmos, designed this stepped pyramid with an uncanny precision that continues to challenge modern interpretations. Its alignment to celestial events is more than symbolic, it is functional. At the heart of El Castillo's mystery lies the way the structure interacts with sunlight. During the equinoxes in March and September, the northwest corner of the pyramid casts a series of triangular shadows along the main staircase, forming the illusion of a serpent slithering down the steps. This visual spectacle appears to converge perfectly with the stone-carved serpent heads at the pyramid's base, creating an astonishing interplay of light and stone. Observers, both ancient and modern, have marvelled at the exactness with which the shadows follow the sun's trajectory, revealing a deliberate understanding of solar motion far beyond simple observation. The pyramid itself is a masterclass in geometry. Rising nearly 98 feet, it is constructed in 4 sides, each with 91 steps that, when combined with the platform at the summit, total 365 steps, the exact number of days in a solar year. This numerical alignment is unlikely to be coincidental, suggesting that the Maya intended El Castillo to serve as both a temple and a giant calendar. Its very proportions encode a measure of time, reflecting a civilization capable of integrating architecture, mathematics, and astronomy into a unified whole. The precision raises questions about how these calculations were made with the tools available during the 9th to 12th centuries. Archaeologists have noted that the pyramid's corners do not point precisely to the cardinal directions, but are offset by mere fractions of a degree, a nuance that significantly influences the shadow formations during equinoxes. Such careful calibration implies sophisticated surveying methods and a conceptual grasp of angular measurement. Despite centuries of study, there is no conclusive evidence revealing the exact techniques the Maya used, leaving room for debate about whether their knowledge was purely empirical or based on advanced, perhaps lost, mathematical principles. The mystery deepens when considering the resources and labour required to construct such a structure. Beyond its solar alignment, El Castillo exhibits a remarkable acoustic phenomenon. When a visitor claps near the base of the staircase, the sound echoes in a way that resembles the chirp of a sacred Quetzal bird, a creature associated with divinity and kingship in Maya mythology. Some researchers propose that this effect was intentional, designed to imbue rituals with a layered sensory experience, intertwining sound, vision, and symbolic meaning. The fact that both the visual serpent and the auditory echo align with religious iconography suggests that the pyramid functioned as a multidimensional instrument for connecting the earthly and cosmic realms. The pyramid's construction materials add another layer of intrigue. Built from limestone blocks quarried locally, many of the stones were precisely cut to fit without mortar, forming a structure that has endured centuries of tropical weather and seismic activity. This stability, combined with the pyramid's geometric precision, points to advanced engineering knowledge. Scholars have debated the labour and techniques involved, estimating that thousands of workers, using only simple tools, shaped and positioned each stone with exacting care. The effort required to achieve such perfection continues to provoke admiration and astonishment. El Castillo is part of a broader complex that underscores the Maya's mastery of spatial planning. Surrounding the pyramid are the Great Ball Court, the Temple of the Warriors, and the observatory known as El Caracol, each exhibiting its own astronomical or ceremonial function. The placement of these structures aligns with solstices, planetary cycles, and celestial phenomena, forming an urban layout that mirrors the sky itself. The interconnectedness of these sites suggests that the Maya viewed their city not merely as a political centre, but as a cosmic map, translating the heavens into stone with a precision that modern urban planners would envy. Intriguingly, historical records indicate that Chichen Itza's rulers may have used El Castillo as a focal point for social and agricultural calendars. The appearance of the serpent shadow likely signalled planting and harvesting periods, blending religious ritual with practical timekeeping. This dual function of spiritual and temporal regulation illustrates a society that integrated observation, engineering, and governance into a coherent system, reflecting a level of sophistication often underestimated in pre-Columbian civilizations. The idea that such knowledge could be encoded in a monument without written instructions highlights the ingenuity of oral and experiential traditions. The pyramid's staircases offer further insight into its design. Each side has exactly 91 steps, and some researchers argue that the step heights and widths were deliberately chosen to interact with sunlight and shadow patterns. This meticulous attention to detail ensures that the descending serpent effect occurs at a precise moment, demonstrating foresight and planning on a scale that would challenge many contemporary builders. While many cultures created monumental architecture, few can match the integration of art, science, and spirituality evident at Chichen Itza. Every stone, shadow, and sound seems to participate in an orchestrated performance that repeats annually, connecting generations across centuries. Even after centuries of excavation, mapping, and technological analysis, certain aspects of El Castillo remain unexplained. For instance, recent studies have shown that the pyramid's platform contains subtle cavities and channels that may influence airflow or acoustic resonance, though their exact purpose is still under investigation. These hidden features hint at an even deeper layer of planning, one that could involve knowledge of physics or environmental interaction that has since been lost. The pyramid continues to reward observation. while simultaneously withholding full understanding, a testament to the ingenuity and secrecy of the Maya architects. Visitors today often report a palpable sense of awe upon witnessing the equinox serpent shadow descend the staircase. Scholars, tourists, and local guides alike describe the experience as both exhilarating and disorienting, a reminder that El Castillo is more than a stone monument. It is a calculated encounter with the cosmos. Every angle, proportion, and shadow evokes questions about the cognitive and technological capabilities of the Maya, challenging assumptions about the limits of ancient engineering. This alignment of ritual, observation, and construction underscores a level of sophistication that modern society still strives to fully comprehend. The pyramid's enduring enigma lies not only in its astronomical and architectural mastery, but in its ability to connect observers across time to a civilization that encoded the cosmos into stone. The deliberate choreography of light, shadow, and sound suggests a worldview in which humans were intimately linked to celestial rhythms, where each structure was a node in a larger cosmic design. For all the study and speculation, the full extent of the knowledge possessed by the Maya remains tantalizingly out of reach. And yet when the sun descends on the equinox, the shadow of a serpent glides down the stairs as if carrying a message from a civilization that still speaks in silence. Balbeck's trilithon and the limits of ancient lifting. The horizon of Balbeck rises like a frozen echo of ambition, where limestone blocks dwarf the surrounding landscape and hint at human feats nearly beyond comprehension. Nestled in the Bekaa Valley of modern Lebanon, the site was later incorporated into a Roman temple complex, yet the foundations predate many of the constructions above, suggesting layers of engineering knowledge stretching across civilizations. Among the ruins, the sheer size of the stones conveys more than architectural intent. It speaks of a society capable of envisioning weight and scale beyond what most today would consider manageable. Even the air around the site seems charged with the weight of human ingenuity lost to time. Among the most confounding features are the trilithon stones, 3 colossal blocks forming part of the Temple of Jupiter's platform, each weighing between 800 and 1,200 tons. Their enormous proportions challenge not only physical logistics, but the limits of historical imagination. The precision with which these stones were positioned atop one another suggests planning and foresight that surpasses casual architectural skill. Measurements indicate they align perfectly with the surrounding complex, and yet there exists no written record of the methods used to cut, lift, or transport such unimaginable weight, leaving an enduring puzzle for archaeologists and engineers alike. The quarries of Hajar al-Hibla, from which these stones were sourced, still bear the grooves, fractures, and unfinished blocks that hint at the monumental labour involved. Here, massive limestone sheets were partially carved from bedrock, separated using tools known to antiquity, and yet no one can explain how they were detached intact from the ground. Some stones in the quarry are even larger than those installed, suggesting an audacious confidence in techniques now lost. The scale of extraction and preparation implies not only skill but an organisational system capable of managing hundreds of labourers, logistics, and timing, all without leaving clear instructions for future generations. Transporting such enormity across uneven terrain would challenge engineers even with modern machinery. Evidence of primitive sledges, rollers, or inclined planes has been proposed, but the terrain itself, rock-strewn, hilly, and unpredictable, offers no straightforward path from quarry to temple. Ancient records are silent on the techniques employed, forcing speculation from observation alone. The challenge is compounded by the distances involved. Some blocks were moved over several kilometres without cranes, pulleys, or iron tools capable of bearing such stress. The result is a conundrum that continues to inspire awe and disbelief, a tangible measure of lost knowledge that defies conventional explanation. Each stone rests with almost imperceptible gaps, fitting together so seamlessly that even a thin blade cannot pass between them. The precision in placement suggests deliberate alignment, likely intended to maximise structural stability and endurance. Scholars have noted that this tight interlocking could protect the platform from earthquakes, though the methods for achieving such accuracy remain unclear. The visual impact alone is staggering. The trilithon seems monolithic, yet it is composed of multiple pieces carved and positioned with unmatched care. The artistry lies not only in lifting the weight, but in arranging it with almost invisible finesse. The trilithon anchors the Temple of Jupiter, forming a foundation that dominates both the city and the imagination. Viewed from above, the stones appear to hum with silent power, dwarfing human scale and asserting authority over every structure around them. This platform supports columns that once soared 22 meters above, emphasizing that even the massive superstructure depended entirely on the precision of these enormous stones below. Functionally, they were the backbone of the temple, yet symbolically they proclaimed dominance, mastery of material, and perhaps even divine favor. For all their solidity, the stones carry an intangible aura of mystery that continues to draw scholars and visitors alike. Contemporary experiments with cranes, hydraulics, and simulated rollers reveal just how staggering the challenge would have been, reinforcing the mystery of techniques that have long vanished. Engineers attempting to replicate similar lifting methods consistently encounter limitations that highlight the ingenuity of the original builders. Even with modern knowledge of leverage, friction, and manpower, the practical execution remains nearly impossible. These exercises underline a persistent question. Did the builders possess tools or methods now lost? Or did they rely on principles of physics and organization that we have yet to fully grasp? Every calculation seems to edge closer to impossibility. Inscriptions and historical records offer little guidance, leaving scholars to reconstruct not only the physical process, but the organizational genius behind it. Roman writers mention grand temples and awe-inspiring architecture but never detail how the massive stones were managed. Earlier civilizations that may have prepared the site left even fewer clues. The silence of documentation adds to the enigma. A civilization capable of coordinating labor, engineering, and monumental ambition chose, or was compelled, to leave no clear record of how its greatest achievements were accomplished. The evidence lies only in the enduring stones themselves. The limestone itself tells part of the story, dense, uniform, and prone to fracture under miscalculated stress. Yet it has endured centuries of weather, seismic tremors, and human activity. Geological analysis confirms that misalignment or improper lifting could have shattered blocks instantly, suggesting the builders understood material properties at a level that modern tests struggle to replicate. Even minor errors in placement or angle would have compromised the platform's integrity, yet it stands silent and resolute, a testament to meticulous observation, careful planning, and perhaps techniques that have been entirely forgotten. Time has preserved the stones, yet erased the practical knowledge of how such unimaginable weight was measured, moved, and set with unwavering precision. Every aspect, from cutting to placement, carries a question about labor organization, mechanical advantage, and problem-solving strategies long since lost to history. The site challenges assumptions about what ancient civilizations could achieve, demonstrating that sheer human determination and ingenuity can confront obstacles that seem insurmountable. Even after centuries of research, every stone remains a puzzle, and the scope of understanding required continues to elude scholars who stand in its shadow. Standing within the shadow of these stones, one cannot ignore the humbling scale of human endeavor that history has left largely unrecorded. The silence of the site is palpable, broken only by the wind across limestone and the echo of the footsteps of visitors who, like generations of workers before them, can only wonder at what it took to lift these giants. Each stone evokes questions of capability, coordination, and knowledge that seem to exceed what should have been possible, preserving a lingering awe that refuses to fade with time. Across the centuries, the giants of Balbeck hold their secret in stone, leaving only the weight itself as proof of skills humanity may never fully reclaim. The Olmec colossal heads and monumental stone transport. Massive basalt faces, each carved with striking detail, stare silently across centuries, marking the presence of a civilization whose power and knowledge remain largely enigmatic. The Olmec, often called Mesoamerica's mother culture, sculpted these monumental heads between roughly 1500 and 400 BCE, leaving a signature of skill and ambition unparalleled for their era. Unlike pyramids or temples, these sculptures are not tied to celestial events. Their fascination lies in their physicality, scale, and the logistical mystery of how they were transported from distant quarries to ceremonial centers. Every line and curve hints at intent, yet the methods behind their movement remain tantalizingly unknown. The basalt quarries from which these heads originated lie miles away, sometimes up to 60 kilometers from their final resting places. Jagged outcrops and uneven terrain formed natural barriers, yet blocks weighing 6 to 50 tons were carved, shaped and prepared for transport. Traces of tool marks indicate hammering and pecking with stone implements, but they offer little insight into the practicalities of hauling such mass through dense jungle and across rivers. The distance, combined with the absence of wheels or draft animals, magnifies the mystery, as each stone's journey represents both a monumental labour feat and a deliberate exercise in engineering ingenuity. Each colossal head weighs as much as a small building, with some exceeding 25 tons, presenting challenges that would intimidate modern engineers. Moving such blocks required more than brute strength. It demanded coordination, careful planning, and intimate knowledge of the landscape. River crossings, swampy stretches, and uneven jungle floors would have required precise timing and possibly innovative construction of temporary infrastructure, yet no documentation survives. The sheer physicality of the task emphasizes the Olmec's mastery of human labor and environmental adaptation, leaving an enduring question. How did a civilization without advanced machinery orchestrate the relocation of stones so vast and unwieldy? Hundreds of hands, coordinated over unknown generations, must have labored together, their movements choreographed with a precision that left no written record. Archaeological evidence suggests a combination of manpower, ropes, rollers, and possibly wooden sledges, though no method fully accounts for the scale and terrain challenges. Organizing such effort implies leadership, planning, and knowledge of material properties, alongside an understanding of social coordination. Each head may have been the product of repeated trial, skill passed orally, and communal effort, hinting at a level of social and technical sophistication rarely attributed to pre-Columbian cultures in the public imagination. Scholars propose methods: logs rolled beneath stones, rafts floated along rivers, sledges dragged over paths, but none provide a complete solution to the scale of the task. Experiments with replicas have repeatedly highlighted the difficulty, revealing friction, terrain, and waterway limitations that defy simple solutions. These attempts underscore a broader enigma. The Olmecs achieved something tangible and lasting that defies easy replication. While exact techniques remain speculative, the surviving monuments serve as physical proof of intentional planning and precision, raising questions about lost knowledge, experimentation, and a level of technical ingenuity largely erased from history. These heads are more than monuments. Their placement suggests the reverence of rulers, the projection of authority, and a civilization attuned to symbolic landscapes. Each face is distinct, often interpreted as the portrait of an individual leader, emphasizing identity, power, and memory. Sites like San Lorenzo, La Venta, and Tres Zapote reveal deliberate arrangement along plazas, avenues, or elevated platforms, hinting at ceremonial or political significance. The labor invested in moving these massive stones reflects not only practical engineering, but an intimate connection between material effort and symbolic meaning, suggesting a society that combined artistic expression, political authority, and logistical mastery in a single monumental act. The orientation and spacing of each head appear deliberate, perhaps aligning with topography, celestial events, or the flow of ceremonial roads, though evidence remains circumstantial. Some are positioned near rivers or elevated sites, allowing them to dominate the landscape and mark territorial or spiritual boundaries. Archaeologists speculate that the choice of location, combined with the effort of transport, may have served as a display of societal organization and technological capability. While direct evidence of Olmec ritual calendars is limited, the precision in placement conveys intentionality, revealing a civilization highly attuned to the interplay of geography, labor, and ceremonial symbolism. Even today, replicating the transport of multi-ton stones through jungle terrain challenges engineers, revealing the ingenuity of techniques that vanished with the Olmec. Attempts to model movement along river routes or overland pathways consistently underestimate the coordination required. Modern hydraulic, mechanical, and material knowledge can only approximate what ancient hands achieved through ingenuity, observation, and trial. The discrepancy between theoretical capability and historical achievement deepens the mystery, forcing a reconsideration of what humans can accomplish without modern technology. Every remaining head is a physical testament to a logistical accomplishment that exceeds expectations for a civilization seemingly distant from our technological timeline. No inscriptions, diagrams, or manuals survive to explain how these feats were achieved, leaving only the stones themselves as evidence of lost knowledge. Each mark on basalt tells part of the story, yet the full narrative, the method, the organization, the ingenuity, is absent. Scholars must piece together clues from tool marks, site geography, and comparative experimentation, yet uncertainty remains pervasive. The Olmecs encoded immense technical skill in stone, yet the knowledge of moving these giants across miles of challenging terrain has evaporated with time. The silence of history magnifies the presence of these colossal faces, which endure as both cultural and technological enigmas. One can imagine lines of workers hauling each head, the rhythmic creak of timber, the strain of muscle, and the careful calculations passed orally across generations. The jungle echoed with human effort, footsteps sinking into mud, ropes straining under unimaginable weight, and navigators adjusting paths to avoid river bends or steep inclines. Each movement demanded foresight, communication, and coordination, suggesting that Olmecs mastered project planning, labor management, and problem-solving in ways that left no direct record. The heads embody both a technical and social achievement, combining collective effort with monumental artistry, yet the precise methods of execution remain hidden beneath the shadows of the rainforest canopy. As centuries passed, the heads remained, guardians of a civilization whose technological insight continues to provoke wonder and uncertainty. Weather, erosion, and human activity have altered the landscape, yet the basalt faces endure, silent witnesses to both the labour of hands long gone and the ingenuity that made their transport possible. Each stone carries echoes of effort, planning, and determination, serving as both historical record and unresolved puzzle. The Olmec monumental heads confront observers with tangible evidence of achievement while withholding the secrets of execution, leaving questions that seem to stretch as far as the rivers once navigated to place them. Despite every attempt to trace their journey, the colossal faces of the Olmec seem to have moved along routes lost to memory, leaving only stone and silence to hint at the skill that guided them. Stonehenge and the transport of bluestones across Britain. Bluestones quarried in the Preseli Hills of Wales now rise on the windswept Salisbury Plain, their distant origins only deepening the enigma of how they were moved across hundreds of miles. The Neolithic builders who undertook this task, roughly 3,000–2,500 BCE, created a monument whose scale and precision continue to awe researchers. Unlike massive megaliths erected nearby, the bluestones travelled extraordinary distances, their relocation demanding ingenuity, coordination, and physical endurance far beyond casual human expectation. Each stone carries the memory of a journey through forests, rivers, and uneven terrain, leaving behind no written record and only the silent testimony of its final placement. The stones themselves are dense and veined with minerals that hint at a distant origin, making each block's journey an extraordinary logistical challenge. Geological surveys confirm that many of these bluestones were extracted from outcrops more than 150 miles from Stonehenge, requiring an understanding of the landscape that modern observers can scarcely replicate. Tool marks on some quarry faces suggest careful detachment, yet they offer no insight into how the stones were transported intact. The sheer scope of this enterprise implies advanced planning and a society capable of coordinating sustained, complex labour over considerable distances. Traversing rivers, hills, and dense forest required not only human endurance, but careful planning, ingenuity, and an understanding of natural obstacles that modern researchers still struggle to fully comprehend. Archaeologists have reconstructed potential routes using a combination of waterways and overland pathways, noting that even with the most favourable terrain, hauling stones of 2 to 5 tons each would have been perilous. Seasonal conditions, unpredictable weather, and the risk of accidents demanded constant vigilance and resourcefulness. Every step of the journey was fraught with the possibility of damage or delay, yet the stones arrived intact, leaving observers to wonder how. Scholars have suggested combinations of sledges, rollers, and primitive rafts, yet no single method fully accounts for how the Neolithic builders accomplished such transport. Experimental archaeology has shown that hauling even a single bluestone overland can require dozens of people. Careful lubrication of logs, and extreme coordination. Some stones may have been floated along rivers in rafts, though moving them through narrow channels or over shallow rapids would have demanded further improvisation. The absence of direct evidence leaves room for speculation, but the stones themselves stand as undeniable proof of skill, persistence, and problem-solving on a scale difficult to comprehend. Seasonal conditions, frozen ground, and river currents may have been exploited to ease movement, demonstrating an advanced awareness of environmental opportunities and limitations. Winter frost may have reduced friction for sledges, while spring floods could carry stones along waterways, although navigating them without modern tools posed extraordinary risk. The builder's ability to harness such conditions implies careful observation, timing, and an understanding of natural forces that modern simulations struggle to duplicate. Every decision, from quarrying to arrival, reflects strategic thought and practical knowledge applied over landscapes both challenging and unpredictable. Lines of labourers, coordinated across distances, must have synchronized effort and knowledge, passing instructions orally while navigating terrain that could easily have damaged the stones. Communication, teamwork, and careful pacing were essential to prevent injury, loss of stone, or derailment of the entire process. Evidence from ethnographic parallels suggests that groups likely worked in shifts, adjusting for terrain, water levels, and fatigue. The effort required collective organisation over months or years, implying social structures capable of sustaining labour-intensive projects and a cultural commitment to the purpose behind the stone's relocation. On the Salisbury Plain, each bluestone had to be carefully positioned upright, levelled, and balanced, a feat requiring both precision and collective problem-solving that leaves modern engineers awed. Pit excavations reveal deliberate foundations and stone sockets designed to stabilise the monoliths, indicating knowledge of balance and structural integrity. Raising stones vertically without cranes or levers of modern design would have demanded carefully staged lifting, bracing, and gradual adjustment. The placement of each block is a testament to human ingenuity, reflecting not only the effort of transport but an understanding of form, weight distribution, and durable positioning that has endured thousands of years. Simple tools carved from wood and stone achieved results that continue to challenge our understanding of prehistoric engineering, leaving only minimal traces for archaeologists to study. Stone hammers, antler picks, and wooden sledges leave almost no evidence, yet they shaped, manoeuvred, and set stones in positions that survive intact today. Modern attempts to replicate these techniques reveal how meticulous and repetitive the work must have been, with tiny errors potentially toppling the stones or causing injury. The Neolithic builders relied entirely on observation, tactile skill, and coordination rather than written plans or mechanical advantage, amplifying the awe their achievement inspires. Beyond their physical presence, the stones likely held ceremonial, territorial, or symbolic significance, though the full meaning of their arrangement has been lost to time. Their placement in concentric circles, arcs, and avenues suggests deliberate spatial logic, possibly linked to ritual, the marking of seasons, or social hierarchy. Archaeologists have noted alignments with solstices, yet the precise rationale behind each stone's selection and positioning remains conjectural. The monument communicates authority and intention through labour and form, encoding cultural knowledge in stone while leaving future generations to interpret its significance through observation alone. Attempts by experimental archaeologists to replicate transport reveal partial success, but underscore how much knowledge has vanished, highlighting the ingenuity of these long-ago communities. Even with careful preparation, modern teams often struggle to match the efficiency, coordination, and endurance the Neolithic builders demonstrated. Each experiment reinforces the scale of human effort required, offering glimpses into social cohesion, engineering skill, and practical problem-solving that existed thousands of years before written instruction. The stones are a record of action, endurance, and ingenuity, yet the methods that enabled their arrival remain elusive. Standing among the monoliths, one can imagine the strain, rhythm, and coordination of human effort that brought each stone from distant hills to its final, enduring position. The sound of timber scraping, ropes taut with weight, and careful adjustments echo silently across millennia, leaving only the stones themselves as proof. The journey from quarry to plain required observation, endurance, and cooperation on a scale rarely seen today, and yet the stones endure, both markers of achievement and guardians of the secrets behind their extraordinary voyage. The path these stones followed, shaped by unseen hands across centuries, remains an unbroken riddle that continues to defy explanation. The Longyou Caves and their mysterious excavation. Vast halls carved from solid siltstone stretch with near-perfect regularity, their craters leaving no trace of who they were or how they accomplished the impossible. Discovered only in 1992 in Zhejiang province, China, these subterranean chambers span thousands of square meters, each one carefully sculpted with straight walls, flat ceilings, and evenly spaced pillars. Unlike other underground spaces of the same era, no debris piles or incomplete work remain, suggesting that every chamber was finished deliberately and with precision. The sheer scale and uniformity challenge conventional assumptions about Neolithic engineering, hinting at knowledge and skill that has long vanished beneath the surface of recorded history. Every chamber is meticulously shaped, pillars standing at exact intervals, and walls smoothed to an almost unnatural precision, hinting at planning that surpasses casual craftsmanship. Measurements show that the halls are remarkably consistent, with ceiling heights, widths, and pillar spacing repeated with astonishing uniformity. The careful geometry implies a sophisticated sense of proportion, requiring both vision and painstaking execution. Even modern architects studying these spaces struggle to reproduce such consistency with manual techniques. The Longyou Caves, in their silent perfection, stand as both a monument to human capability and a puzzle that continues to elude full explanation. The amount of labour required to carve thousands of square metres underground, without modern tools or lighting, suggests coordination and skill that challenge modern assumptions about ancient societies. Scholars estimate that moving and removing the enormous quantities of siltstone would have required hundreds of workers over months or years. The work demanded not only brute strength but careful planning, organisation, and knowledge of the stone's properties to prevent collapse. The absence of settlements or records nearby deepens the mystery, leaving questions about how a population could sustain such labour and where they acquired the techniques necessary to execute these flawless chambers. Surprisingly few tool marks survive, leaving scholars puzzled over the methods used to shape stone so uniformly without leaving conventional traces. Close inspection reveals shallow grooves and subtle striations, but nothing resembling the deep repetitive scoring typical of chiselling. Some researchers speculate that the builders used techniques now lost to time, perhaps employing abrasives, water, or wooden implements with extreme skill. The lack of evidence only intensifies the enigma, suggesting either that these techniques were refined to near invisibility, or that the builders had knowledge of construction methods that modern investigators cannot fully reconstruct. Sounds carry in eerie ways through these caverns, with echoes bouncing across walls and ceilings as if the chambers were designed to manipulate or amplify noise. Steps reverberate far longer than expected for spaces of this size, and a single shout can travel dozens of meters with startling clarity. Some chambers produce specific tonal resonances, though it is unknown whether this acoustic property was intentional or a natural consequence of the stone and geometry. The effect is unnerving for modern visitors, enhancing the sense that these halls were designed to influence perception, amplify ceremony, or mark sacred spaces, even if the original purpose has been lost. The properties of the siltstone itself add another layer of mystery, as its delicate nature would have demanded careful handling to avoid cracks while carving enormous spaces. The material is soft enough to be carved with relative ease, yet large sections remain perfectly intact after millennia underground. Extracting, shaping, and moving such stone would have required intimate knowledge of its behaviour, as a single misstep could collapse a chamber or ruin a pillar. This balance of fragility and stability points to a mastery over the material that defies casual explanation, underscoring both the ingenuity and caution of the unknown builders. The arrangement of rooms and corridors suggests intentional planning, though whether for ritual, storage, or communal purpose remains completely unknown. Some halls connect to others via narrow passageways, while others sit isolated with no clear functional logic. The repetition of patterns, pillar spacing, and ceiling height suggests a deliberate blueprint rather than improvisation. The layout may have facilitated ceremonies, controlled light and sound, or simply adhered to an aesthetic principle now lost to time. Without written records, The meaning of these spatial choices remains speculation, but their coherence and scale speak to a sophisticated understanding of design that predates known architectural precedents. No artifacts, inscriptions, or records accompany the caves, intensifying the enigma of their origin and the people who spent immense effort underground. Unlike other archaeological sites, Longyou offers no clues in the form of pottery, tools, or burial remnants. The builders left nothing to identify themselves, forcing modern archaeologists to rely entirely on the stonework and its precision. This absence is almost as remarkable as the construction itself. It suggests a culture capable of complex engineering, yet content to leave only the silent halls as testament to their labour and skill, allowing the caves themselves to tell the story or withhold it entirely. Rediscovered in 1992, the caves have been mapped and measured, yet each new survey uncovers more questions than answers about their construction and purpose. Modern techniques like laser scanning and 3D modelling reveal consistent chamber dimensions, subtle tool traces, and precise pillar alignment. Still, the methods that enabled this achievement remain unknown. Attempts to replicate even a fraction of the work with manual labour or primitive tools have proven daunting, reinforcing the sense that the Longyou Caves represent a combination of human ingenuity, lost knowledge, and perhaps a cultural imperative whose meaning no one today can fully reconstruct. Even with modern engineering techniques, replicating these halls with their scale, uniformity, and precision is a task that continues to defy replication. Every wall, every pillar, and every ceiling plane seems to reflect knowledge of geometry, material behaviour, and construction logistics that exceeds what might be expected for the period. Contemporary engineers and archaeologists alike marvel at the balance between functionality and artistry, noting that few modern subterranean constructions achieve such consistency without advanced machinery. The caves challenge assumptions about the limits of prehistoric human capability, leaving the mind to grapple with possibilities that remain unproven. Walking among the silent chambers, one can sense the echoes of skillful hands and careful minds that shaped stone into spaces that defy explanation. Light from modern lanterns flickers across smooth walls, illuminating pillars that have stood untouched for millennia. The quiet is punctuated only by footfalls and the occasional echo, a haunting reminder that these halls were once alive with labour, planning, and intent. Every corner, every passageway speaks to a level of coordination and craftsmanship that seems almost beyond reach for contemporary understanding, leaving an impression of awe, reverence, and deep curiosity about the vanished minds behind them. Though every block has endured millennia, the knowledge of how the Longyou Caves were excavated remains lost to history, preserved only in the empty air of their vast halls. Easter Island's Moai and coastal engineering. Towering stone figures dot the slopes of Easter Island, silent witnesses to a civilization that sculpted and transported them without leaving written records. Each Moai embodies remarkable craftsmanship, carved from volcanic tuff at Rano-Raraku, a quarry that served as the source for nearly all the island's monumental statues. The figures range from small, human-sized effigies to towering icons over 30 feet tall, each meticulously shaped with stylized features and distinct expressions. Despite their scale, every statue reflects care, proportion, and intentionality, hinting at a society with both artistic sensibility and extraordinary technical skill, capable of moving immense stone across a landscape as isolated as it is rugged. Some Moai reach over 30 feet in height and weigh tens of tons, their proportions and expressions varying subtly across hundreds of examples. Observers note differences in head tilt, body stance, and facial detail, suggesting either individual commemoration or regional stylistic preferences. The sheer diversity and size demand labour, coordination, and knowledge that modern investigators struggle to imagine. While smaller statues may have been easier to manoeuvre, the largest required not only brute strength, but precise planning to avoid fractures, misplacement, or catastrophic toppling during transport and installation. At the volcanic quarry of Rano-Raraku, unfinished statues reveal chisel marks and techniques that hint at skilled labour using stone, wood, and ingenuity. Some figures remain partially attached to bedrock, showing both the removal process and the sequence of carving from front to back. Marks suggest repeated refinement, careful shaping of features, and a gradual detachment that minimise damage. These unfinished works offer a rare glimpse into the methods used, though they still leave essential questions unanswered about leverage, lifting, and long-distance movement across the island's challenging terrain. Transporting these monoliths across rocky paths, through valleys, and along coastal cliffs required not only strength, but an intimate knowledge of the island's topography. Archaeologists note that the Moai had to traverse uneven ground, steep slopes, and natural obstacles with remarkable care. Paths were likely cleared and prepared in advance, while coordination among workers would have been critical to maintain balance and prevent stone fractures. Each journey was a delicate balance of force, guidance, and environmental awareness, demonstrating that the Rapa Nui people possessed practical engineering skills that remain difficult to replicate today. Researchers have proposed methods ranging from rolling on logs to rocking the statues upright in a walking motion, though no single theory fully explains the feat. Experimental archaeology has replicated portions of the journey using teams of modern volunteers, revealing both the physical difficulty and the necessity of coordination. Observations suggest the possibility of moving the Moai in an upright rocking motion, walking them forward in controlled steps. Whether this method was used consistently, combined with sledges, or adapted for each statue, it is clear that ingenuity and adaptive problem-solving were central to every transport effort. The island's windswept slopes, unstable soils, and jagged rocks would have amplified every risk, demanding careful coordination to prevent disaster. A single misstep could tip a statue, sending tons of stone tumbling down a cliff or breaking valuable carvings. Coastal exposure added salt, moisture, and erosion as complicating factors, further challenging long-distance transport. Yet the Moai arrived upright and intact, suggesting that the builders possessed detailed knowledge of the terrain, materials, and mechanics involved in moving such massive sculptures across an unforgiving environment. Placement atop ceremonial Ahu platforms involved precise leveling and orientation, suggesting an understanding of load distribution and ceremonial alignment. These stone platforms required foundation stabilization, careful balancing of massive statues, and attention to structural integrity. Many Ahu face inland, overlooking communities and agricultural lands, while some align with solar events or coastal landmarks. The precise positioning indicates both practical engineering and cultural purpose, implying that every statue's final location was chosen with careful consideration, blending functionality, ritual significance, and symbolic power into a single monumental act. Organizing groups to move multiple statues simultaneously implies sophisticated social coordination, with roles, timing, and skill transmitted across generations. Labor would have been divided into teams for carving, guiding, stabilizing, and signaling along the path. Communication and leadership were essential to prevent accidents and maintain efficiency. The effort to relocate dozens, potentially hundreds of Moai over decades reflects a social structure capable of sustaining long-term, labor-intensive projects. It also demonstrates the cultural weight placed on these statues, as the commitment of resources and manpower underscores their importance to the Rapa Nui people. Many Moai face inland, overlooking settlements and resources, indicating a symbolic or spiritual purpose that may have guided their placement and construction. The statues likely served as guardians, ancestors, or markers of territorial and ceremonial significance. While their exact meaning is lost to history, the combination of size, orientation, and alignment implies that every figure was more than a sculpture. It was a statement of identity, authority, and connection between people, land, and the spiritual world. Their presence transforms the landscape into a network of symbols, blending practical and metaphysical considerations in a uniquely sophisticated way. Modern experiments using teams to replicate transport with minimal technology highlight the extraordinary balance of ingenuity, endurance, and observation required by the Rapa Nui. Even with detailed plans and understanding of potential methods, moving Moai over uneven terrain remains physically demanding. Contemporary trials confirm that the combination of careful planning, teamwork, and adaptive techniques would have been essential. These experiments reinforce the impression that the Rapa Nui engineered solutions in real time, using knowledge of stone topography and human coordination that has left only the enduring monuments as evidence of their expertise. Standing at the base of a Moai today, one can almost sense the rhythm of coordinated labor, the careful navigation of obstacles, and the vanished techniques that guided these immense figures. The wind whistles across the platforms, carrying faint echoes of voices and movement, while shadows accentuate the statue's towering presence. Each Moai silently communicates the story of human perseverance, innovation, and ritualized intent, a narrative preserved in stone that continues to challenge and captivate modern observers. These enduring monuments compel reflection on how ingenuity, cultural focus, and sheer determination combine to produce feats that remain unparalleled in isolation and scale. Centuries have passed, yet the Moai's journey across the island remains an enigma, carried silently on the windswept cliffs without revealing its full story. Hattusa's precision stone gateways of the Hittites. From the vantage of Hattusa's streets, gateways frame the city as though every stone were placed to convey authority and order. The fortified capital of the Hittite Empire, perched amidst the rocky hills of central Anatolia, was designed with meticulous attention to access and defense. Visitors and citizens alike would have encountered these massive portals as both physical and symbolic thresholds, imposing a sense of structure and control. Each gateway not only defined the limits of the city but communicated the sophistication of a society capable of translating abstract principles of geometry and strategy into enduring architecture. Each portal occupies a precise location along fortified walls, shaping movement, controlling access, and dictating the rhythm of daily life. Archaeologists note that the placement allowed defenders to monitor and manage entry efficiently while channeling traffic through narrow corridors designed for tactical advantage. Gates were spaced to create choke points, observation angles, and overlapping fields of defense, revealing an understanding of military strategy that integrated seamlessly with urban planning. These arrangements suggest that Hittite architects were thinking not only in stone, but in human behavior and spatial control, designing with foresight rarely documented in other Bronze Age capitals. The blocks themselves interlock with remarkable exactness, suggesting the Hittites understood geometry in ways that challenge modern assumptions. Limestone blocks weighing several tons fit together so tightly that even modern tools struggle to separate them. The absence of mortar did not compromise stability. Instead, precision cutting ensured load distribution and longevity. Subtle bevels, interlocking joints, and carefully levelled surfaces demonstrate a level of craftsmanship that indicates both sophisticated surveying and highly skilled stonemasonry, skills that likely required years of apprenticeship and cultural transmission to perfect. Above some entrances, corbelled arches span wide openings, distributing weight with subtle sophistication that continues to withstand the centuries. Unlike simple lintels, these arches rely on a careful stacking of stones, each placed to redirect force outward and down. The technique allowed gateways to reach considerable widths while resisting seismic or environmental stress. Modern engineers studying these structures find the simplicity of the design deceptive, as achieving structural stability without mortar or advanced machinery would have required precise calculation and an intuitive understanding of material behavior. Measurements reveal consistent proportions, right angles, and alignment that hint at surveying skills lost to history. Repeated ratios across multiple gateways suggest standardization, possibly a master plan guiding construction over decades. Archaeologists have noted that corners align with cardinal directions or natural topography, hinting that aesthetics, functionality, and cosmological awareness may have influenced design choices. The precision implies that the Hittites employed measuring tools and techniques capable of ensuring accuracy over large distances, a remarkable feat for a civilization working exclusively with human labour and simple implements. Gateways fit seamlessly into the city's network of streets and defensive corridors, implying that layout, traffic, and protection were considered simultaneously. The walls and passages appear designed to guide the flow of people while enabling rapid troop deployment, demonstrating that the city's structure was an integrated system rather than a series of isolated constructions. Archaeologists remark on the harmony of form and function, where gateways serve as both thresholds and tactical instruments, revealing a culture capable of combining engineering, military foresight, and urban planning in a cohesive whole. Organising workers to shape, lift, and fit these stones with such precision required foresight, coordination, and social control unmatched in many contemporary civilizations. Teams of stonemasons, labourers, and supervisors would have coordinated over months or even years to complete a single gateway. The scale of these projects implies a hierarchical society, with specialized roles, oversight mechanisms, and logistical planning to supply tools, move materials, and maintain consistency. The success of these undertakings speaks to both technical knowledge and a social organization capable of sustaining ambitious, labor-intensive projects across generations. Carvings, reliefs, and symbolic placement suggest the gateways were more than utilitarian structures. They communicated cultural identity and ritual significance. Some gateways bear inscriptions or motifs that may have denoted royal authority, divine protection, or the legitimacy of the city's rulers. The alignment, scale, and careful ornamentation of each portal indicate that the Hittites imbued their architecture with meaning beyond defense, transforming stone thresholds into symbols of power, continuity, and cosmic order. Each gateway therefore embodies both practicality and ideology, bridging the tangible and the symbolic. Even compared to other Bronze Age capitals, Hattusa's stonework demonstrates a level of engineering and planning that seems both deliberate and far-reaching. Cities like Mycenae, Ugarit, or Babylon possess monumental gates and walls, yet Hattusa's combination of precision, geometry, and alignment appears unparalleled for the period. The durability, integration with urban planning, and subtle sophistication suggest knowledge and skill that surpass simple construction. They hint at a civilization that understood forces, measurement, and materials at a level that continues to impress engineers and historians alike. Modern archaeologists continue to survey and reconstruct the gateways, yet each new measurement only deepens the mystery of their exact methods. Laser scanning, 3D modelling, and comparative analysis of the stones reveal patterns in placement, angles, and interlocking joints that suggest a systemic logic underlying construction. Still, the specific techniques used to lift, maneuver, and fit the massive blocks remain uncertain. Each discovery raises questions about Hittite surveying methods, tool use, and training, emphasizing that much of their knowledge has vanished without record, leaving only the enduring stones as testimony. Walking along the city walls, one can almost sense the intelligence embedded in every stone, the decisions that guided shape, placement, and orientation. Shadows shift across the Cyclopean blocks, revealing subtle contours and joins that hint at both human intention and long-forgotten techniques. The gateways function as both relics and puzzles, silent yet communicative, demonstrating that ancient urban design could encode strategy, symbolism, and skill simultaneously. Observers today are left with a profound respect for the precision, labour, and insight embedded into these stone thresholds, marvelling at how much was accomplished without modern machinery or written schematics. The Hittites left no blueprint, yet their gateways endure as a silent testimony to an understanding of precision that still eludes explanation. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni and its acoustic design. A single low hum in the Hypogeum can fill entire chambers, hinting at a prehistoric understanding of sound that still confounds modern researchers. The subterranean network, carved entirely from Maltese limestone during the Neolithic period, demonstrates skill and planning that remains astonishingly sophisticated. Unlike above-ground temples, the Hypogeum engages the senses directly. Every chamber, passage, and niche manipulates how sound travels, creating an auditory experience intertwined with space itself. Scholars suggest that these resonances were deliberate, a tool used to evoke emotion, attention, or even altered consciousness during rituals, though the exact intentions remain shrouded in mystery. Passages and rooms unfold with deliberate geometry, their proportions seemingly designed to manipulate the way sound travels. Levels descend in measured sequences, with each chamber echoing or amplifying certain tones. Staircases and sloping corridors are not merely functional, they guide vibrations and influence acoustics in ways that modern analysis only partially explains. The integration of these spatial dimensions suggests the builders understood how shape and volume affect resonance, turning the Hypogeum into both a sacred space and an architectural instrument of sound, where human perception could be subtly influenced by the very structure surrounding it. Certain chambers carry echoes with extraordinary clarity, making even a whispered tone reverberate across stone walls. Archaeologists have noted that some rooms act like natural amplifiers, where a single voice can be heard throughout multiple levels. This effect is particularly pronounced in the so-called oracle room, where sound behaves as if the stone itself were a speaker. Tests using modern equipment confirm unusual resonance patterns, yet the ancient methods to achieve such control remain unknown. The possibility that prehistoric builders intentionally harnessed these acoustic properties adds a layer of sophistication that challenges conventional assumptions about Neolithic societies. The precise carving of walls and ceilings suggests the builders measured both space and material to achieve structural and acoustic stability. Tool marks, smooth surfaces, and uniform angles indicate advanced workmanship, reflecting a nuanced understanding of limestone's behaviour. Unlike random or purely functional excavation, the hypogeum exhibits deliberate planning to ensure that the chambers remain stable while preserving their acoustic qualities. This level of foresight implies both technical knowledge and conceptual vision. The architects were thinking in terms of vibrations, echoes, and sound propagation long before formal theories of acoustics existed. Ritual artifacts and burial niches imply that sound played a role in ceremonial practices, amplifying chants or song in ways still mysterious. Skeletal remains, pottery, and carved symbols suggest that the hypogeum served both as a necropolis and as a spiritual centre. The interaction between voice and space may have been intended to communicate with the dead, sanctify ceremonies, or induce altered states of perception. Modern observers can feel the effect. A single spoken syllable resonates, filling the chamber with a presence that seems designed to elicit reverence, awe, or introspection. Visitors today describe an uncanny sensation, as if the stone itself is responding to the vibrations of the human voice. Low tones ripple through floors, walls, and ceilings, creating an experience that is both physical and psychological. Even silent gestures can be amplified by the shape of the chambers, producing subtle pressure on the ears and body. Researchers note that this effect is consistent, measurable, and reproducible, suggesting it was not accidental. The hypogeum therefore stands as a testament to a culture capable of manipulating human perception through design, achieving an eerie fusion of architecture and sensory experience. The construction implies remarkable foresight, coordinating labour and spatial design to produce predictable resonance across multiple levels. Workers would have needed guidance to maintain consistent shapes, angles, and surfaces while carving deep underground, yet the acoustic effects remain remarkably uniform. The organisation required to achieve this precision points to a society that understood both collective effort and technical constraints. Each level of the hypogeum reflects deliberate planning, suggesting a mental blueprint that encompassed structural integrity, ritual functionality, and acoustic effects simultaneously, a synthesis of engineering and artistry that continues to intrigue modern scholars. No other Neolithic site exhibits such deliberate integration of auditory and architectural design, making Hal Saflieni unique in the prehistoric world. Unlike megalithic structures or pyramids, which impress primarily through scale, the hypogeum fascinates through invisible manipulation of sound. Its chambers are instruments, corridors are amplifiers, and niches resonate like tuned nodes. Archaeologists and acousticians alike struggle to identify comparable examples, leaving the site standing as a singular testament to human innovation and sensory experimentation during a period long assumed to lack sophisticated technological awareness. Modern acoustic studies employing spectrograms and resonance mapping confirm that specific frequencies travel farther and amplify within certain chambers, yet the precise methods remain speculative. Researchers have tested a range of tones, observing that some notes can be heard throughout multiple levels, while others cancel out or vanish entirely. The builder's control over these effects suggests experimentation, empirical knowledge, and intentional refinement. Even so, no surviving record explains the techniques, leaving the precise methodology of acoustic manipulation a tantalizing puzzle that bridges archaeology, physics, and anthropology. Even after decades of archaeological analysis, the hypogeum's sonic design resists full explanation, hinting at knowledge lost to time. Stone, geometry, and human perception converge in ways that remain partially enigmatic. Scholars continue to debate whether the design reflects accidental resonance, empirical trial and error, or deliberate experimentation by a society aware of acoustic principles. Each study deepens both understanding and mystery, revealing the sophistication of Neolithic Maltese culture, while simultaneously emphasizing the limits of contemporary knowledge. Every corridor and chamber conveys an invisible logic, as if the builders intended the stones themselves to instruct, guide, or awaken those who enter. The hypogeum resonates with layers of human intention, from the placement of burial niches to the shaping of walls for tonal effect. Walking through its chambers today, one experiences a fusion of engineering, ritual, and sensory artistry that evokes questions about what prehistoric peoples truly understood and valued. It stands as both a memorial to the dead and a lasting experiment in perception, bridging the tangible and the immaterial. Voices from the past linger in the stone, yet the full design of the hypogeum's acoustic marvels remains a secret, whispered only to those who dare to listen closely. Teotihuacan's urban grid and mica layers. Precision runs through every line of Teotihuacan, where avenues intersect with such calculated regularity that the city seems drawn from an architect's meticulous blueprint. The sprawling metropolis, constructed between 100 BCE and 550 CE in the Basin of Mexico, covers more than 20 square kilometers, yet its layout defies randomness. From the orientation of its main thoroughfares to the positioning of monumental pyramids, every element reflects planning and foresight. The city's builders, whose identities remain largely unknown, combined knowledge of geometry, materials, and spatial perception to create an urban environment that is as functional as it is mysterious, a testament to a civilization that may have been far more sophisticated than previously imagined. Straight streets stretch for miles, dividing the city into grids that reveal not only organization, but a sophisticated understanding of urban flow and visual symmetry. The Avenida de los Muertos, Teotihuacan's central axis, runs for nearly 2 kilometers, flanked by plazas, temples, and residential compounds. Its alignment does not conform merely to the cardinal points. It tracks subtle astronomical markers, capturing solstices and equinoxes with remarkable precision. This geometric consistency, repeated across neighborhoods and ceremonial spaces, implies not only technical knowledge but a social structure capable of enforcing uniformity on a massive scale. The placement of the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon appears far from arbitrary, aligning with both the horizon and specific celestial events. The Sun Pyramid, the largest structure in the city, rises atop a carefully chosen platform, its angles and orientation reflecting a sophisticated understanding of solar movement. Across the Plaza of the Moon, the eponymous pyramid mirrors the celestial cycle, creating a dialogue between ground, monument, and sky. Such alignment suggests that Teotihuacan was designed not simply for habitation, but as a space where architecture and cosmos intersected, a city conceived as both human and divine. Beneath the surfaces of plazas and pyramids lie layers of mica, glittering faintly even after centuries, raising questions about their intended function. Archaeologists have discovered thin sheets of the mineral embedded in pyramid cores and construction layers, a phenomenon without clear explanation. Mica's reflective properties, durability, and rarity suggest it was chosen intentionally, not merely as a filler material. Whether the layers were meant to reflect light, produce sound, or serve as a symbolic conduit remains unknown, leaving researchers to ponder the intersection of practicality, ritual, and aesthetic consideration in the minds of Teotihuacan's architects. Builders combined stone, lime, and mica in ways that suggest both experimentation and knowledge of materials that enhanced durability or possibly reflected light and energy. The construction process reveals sophisticated layering techniques, with mica integrated between masonry courses in ways that likely required careful measurement and handling. This integration may have helped stabilize the structures or imbued them with luminous qualities visible under certain lighting conditions. Whatever the purpose, the technical skill required to implement these layers points to a culture that understood material properties at a level that challenges modern assumptions about pre-Columbian engineering. The city's design hints at cosmological principles, where architecture, orientation, and materials may have served as instruments for ritual or celestial observation. Certain plazas align with distant mountain peaks, while the avenues themselves correspond to solar cycles, hinting at a symbolic or ceremonial network embedded in urban planning. Mica, in this context, may have enhanced visual or even acoustic effects during religious observances, turning streets and pyramids into active participants in ritual life. The city becomes a layered map, both literal and metaphorical, guiding the actions of its inhabitants in ways that remain partially inscrutable. Coordinating labor to construct streets, pyramids, and embedded mica layers required unprecedented organization, planning, and long-term societal cooperation. Tens of thousands of workers would have needed to quarry stone, transport materials, and position mica with remarkable precision, all without written records of standard engineering methods. The synchronization of effort across decades indicates a hierarchy and administrative system capable of sustaining large-scale projects, an early example of complex civic planning that rivals civilizations elsewhere in the world at the time. Few ancient cities achieved the scale and precision of Teotihuacan, making it a singular example of pre-Columbian urban sophistication. Its combination of monumental architecture, regularized streets, and hidden materials surpasses that of contemporary Mesoamerican settlements. The city functions as both a living space and an experimental canvas, revealing a civilization with not only practical knowledge of construction, but also a vision for urban aesthetics, ritual significance, and long-term durability. Each structure, avenue, and embedded mica sheet contributes to a puzzle that continues to fascinate archaeologists today. Modern archaeologists employ chemical analyses, ground-penetrating radar, and careful mapping to uncover the hidden patterns of mica placement and spatial alignment. Investigations reveal that mica sheets were neither random nor decorative. They appear in consistent layers in pyramid cores and construction platforms. Despite these findings, the reasons for their incorporation remain unclear. Were they intended to capture light, channel spiritual energy, or preserve structural integrity? Every discovery seems to raise more questions than it answers, reinforcing the sense that Teotihuacan's craters possessed knowledge now lost to time. Despite these discoveries, the reasoning behind mica incorporation and precise urban layout remains elusive, challenging assumptions about pre-Columbian knowledge. Scholars debate whether the city represents a purely functional blueprint, a ceremonial landscape, or a combination of both. Even its immense scale, visible from satellite imagery, does not account for the subtlety of hidden design elements like mica layers. Each revelation about the city's planning or materials underscores the sophistication of a civilization capable of blending practical, symbolic, and perhaps even spiritual dimensions within a single urban framework. Walking through the avenues today, one senses both human ingenuity and unanswered questions, as if the city itself were a carefully coded message waiting to be understood. The streets, plazas, and pyramids seem to communicate across space and time, hinting at purposes only partially discernible to the modern eye. The glitter of mica beneath the surface, the precision of alignment, and the harmony between monumental architecture and urban design combine to form a silent, enigmatic language. It is a message that challenges observers to consider not only what was built but why, and what knowledge may have guided hands that have long since vanished. The glittering mica layers and precise streets endure as silent witnesses, hinting at knowledge of the earth and sky that has vanished from memory. The pyramids of Corral and early monumental civilization. Across the sweeping Soup Valley, Corral's platform pyramids suggest an unexpected sophistication for a civilization over 5 millennia old. Predating many of the Old World's most famous monuments, this Peruvian city challenges conventional timelines of human development. The pyramids, plazas, and residential complexes form a network of structures that, even today, convey purpose and precision, revealing a culture capable of large-scale urban planning long before the wheel or written records appeared. Archaeologists marvel at the alignment, materials, and design, noting that the city's builders understood both human needs and ceremonial imperatives with startling clarity. Monumental pyramids anchor plazas and civic spaces, indicating that ceremonial and communal life was carefully integrated into urban planning. The largest pyramids, constructed of stone and adobe, rise in tiered forms above open courts that could accommodate gatherings of hundreds. These spaces were not randomly positioned. Each platform aligns with sightlines to surrounding mountains and plazas, suggesting deliberate choices in orientation and placement. Observers note that the scale of these structures would have required careful coordination, raising questions about how a society without metal tools could achieve such architectural cohesion. Straight avenues and rectangular plazas hint at a deliberate city layout, where movement and sightlines were orchestrated with precision. The grid-like arrangement separates residential areas from ceremonial centers while maintaining visual and physical connections between major pyramids. Even the minor structures show proportional design, indicating that the entire city was conceived as a unified environment rather than a collection of isolated buildings. This level of planning points to an understanding of spatial relationships, social function, and possibly even symbolic meaning encoded across the urban landscape. Builders shaped stone, adobe, and compacted earth into enduring forms, achieving remarkable durability without metal tools or draft animals. Massive stone blocks were quarried from nearby sources and shaped by hand, then integrated into complex platforms and walls. The earth used for pyramids was carefully layered and compacted, allowing structures to endure earthquakes and centuries of exposure. The sheer scale of material movement and placement implies both technical knowledge and sustained labour organisation, reinforcing the sense that Keral's architects possess skills far beyond what many scholars expected for such an early period. Some plazas carry sound in unusual ways, implying that early architects may have considered acoustics in the design of ritual spaces. Certain corners and walls amplify low-frequency vibrations, allowing chants or musical performances to reverberate throughout gathering areas. This acoustic sensitivity suggests that Keral's urban design served not only functional and ceremonial purposes, but also sensory ones, enhancing communal experiences and possibly reinforcing social cohesion. The city's builders appear to have recognized that space itself could shape perception, creating an immersive environment that blended architecture with human activity. Coordinating large teams to transport earth and stone would have required social organization and shared expertise beyond what is usually attributed to such early societies. The construction of pyramids and platforms likely spanned decades, demanding laborers to quarry, carry and position materials with remarkable precision. Organizing this effort implies a hierarchy or administrative system capable of managing workforce allocation, supply lines, and construction schedules. Such evidence paints a picture of a society that could sustain long-term projects with strategic planning, challenging assumptions about the capabilities of early urban civilizations. Surrounding terraces and irrigation systems reveal a nuanced understanding of agriculture and resource management that sustained the population over centuries. The Soup River Valley was carefully modified to maximize arable land, with terraces reducing erosion and channels distributing water to crops. This integration of urban and agricultural planning suggests that Keral's architects considered the city in ecological terms, balancing monumental construction with subsistence strategies. It also reflects foresight in sustaining a large population and indicates a civilization with a sophisticated grasp of environmental management. Keral predates many Old World monumental cities, challenging assumptions about the emergence of urban complexity and large-scale architecture. Whereas Egypt's pyramids and Mesopotamian ziggurats were built later, Keral demonstrates that early civilizations in the Americas developed monumental, organized, and technologically sophisticated societies independently. This chronological precedence forces scholars to reconsider the global history of urbanism, engineering, and social organization. The city stands as a testament to human ingenuity, showing that monumental achievement was not restricted to the civilizations of the Eastern Hemisphere. Recovered artifacts from musical instruments to finely woven textiles illustrate a culture whose sophistication extended well beyond architecture. Flutes, reed instruments, and ceremonial objects suggest an advanced artistic tradition, while cotton textiles indicate knowledge of spinning, weaving, and dyeing techniques. These discoveries reveal a civilization that valued both utility and aesthetic expression, integrating culture, religion, and urban design. Every artifact provides insight into Keral's social and ceremonial life, offering clues to how the city functioned not only as a place of living, but also as a stage for shared human experience. The purpose behind pyramid placement, city alignment, and ceremonial platforms remains enigmatic, leaving gaps in our understanding that invite speculation. Scholars debate whether the pyramids were tombs, temples, or symbolic markers of social hierarchy, yet no human remains or inscriptions provide definitive answers. The coordination between monumental and residential zones hints at a complex societal structure whose inner workings are largely lost. Even with decades of excavation, Keral continues to defy full explanation, preserving an aura of mystery that surrounds the intentions and knowledge of its builders. The arrangement of pyramids, plazas, and avenues conveys deliberate intent, as though the city itself encoded lessons for those who came after. Lines of sight between platforms, acoustic amplification in ceremonial spaces, and the careful integration of agriculture into urban planning all suggest a civilization capable of abstract thinking and complex coordination. Corral's enduring structures are not merely ruins, but a carefully composed statement, a record of human ambition and ingenuity that survives long after the people themselves vanished. Silent and enduring, Corral's pyramids continue to guard mysteries whose meaning may never be fully unraveled.